I woke up because my stomach was trying to eat itself. For days. That's how long I've been stuck in this body. For days of lying on a bed that smells like sadness, staring at a ceiling made of cloth so old it's basically a historical artifact, listening to my new parents argue about money through walls thinner than my patience. Tonight's episode of Poverty Theater was a real banger. Dad was trying to sell our best piece of land for 8 silver taels. Mom nearly lost her mind. Apparently someone offered 12 taels before, and Dad said no. And now he's crawling back at 8 like a man returning to an ex who keyed his car. We need it for second son's medicine, Dad mumbled, and honestly, the guilt hit different when you're second son. Here's the thing about the guy whose body I hijacked. He was absolutely, catastrophically useless. This dude had the rare privilege of getting 2 whole years of education in a village where most people can't spell their own name. And what did he do with it? Became a gambling addict. A bad gambling addict. The kind who loses money like it's his job. He stole the family's rice. Rice, in a house where rice is basically gold, traded it for coins, and fed it all to the gambling den. Then, on his way home from yet another legendary losing streak, someone cracked him over the head with a stick, dumped him in a ditch, and he died. And I moved in. Thanks for the body, loser. Real fixer-upper you left me. The one good thing? I brought luggage. A deep crimson game panel floated up when I focused my mind. Wakuji strength, 2. Constitution, 2. Agility, 2. 2 across the board, 2. An average adult male sits at 5. I'm basically a scarecrow with a pulse. The system also gave me a starter archery skill at 0 proficiency and a partner slot that's emptier than my stomach. The partner system is the interesting part. Interact with companions, boost stats, maybe unlock talents. No limit on how many partners. Higher charm and affection means better bonuses. Basically, the universe is telling me to riz my way to power. But first, I needed to not die of starvation. The door curtain flipped open and in walked Shin Qing Tang, my so-called fiancé. Tall, sharp-featured, wearing clothes so washed out they'd forgotten what color they used to be. Her hair was held up by a wooden pin that looked like it had seen the fall of at least 2 dynasties. She was thin, painfully thin, but even half-starved. This girl was stunning. I pulled up her stats because of course I did. Shin Qing Tang. Charm, 82. Potential, 93. Affection toward me, -30. 93 potential charm. That's nation-toppling, dynasty ending. Wars have been fought over less territory. And she currently hates my guts at -30 because the previous tenant of this body treated her like furniture. He wanted to cancel the engagement. With a future 93, the man was not just blind, he was aggressively anti-vision. She shoved a bowl into my hands. You're awake? Drink this. Your mother made it. The medicine tasted like someone boiled a boot in swamp water, but I chugged it like a champion and got up to leave. Where do you think you're going? She frowned at me. Your head's still a mess. Fresh air, I said, already walking. She followed me anyway, because apparently even at -30 affection, she still had more loyalty than I deserved. In the main room, Mom was sitting at a table, so broken it needed a brick crutch to stand up. My little sister Xiao Pin was next to her, 4 or 5 years old, skinny as a bean sprout, hair dry and yellow from malnutrition. Mom's eyes went red the second she saw me. Second son, why aren't you resting? Does your head still hurt? Nobody in my previous life ever fussed over me like that. I grew up in an orphanage. That kind of worried love hit me somewhere I didn't know I had. I sat down, and they put a bowl of porridge in front of me. Mine was thick. Everyone else's was basically hot water with a few grains of rice floating around like lost swimmers. One sad plate of pickled vegetables sat in the middle of the table like a centerpiece of despair. And there was little Xiao Pin, clutching her chopsticks, staring at my thick porridge with huge eyes, not saying a single word, not asking, not whining, just staring, being brave. Something twisted inside my chest so hard I thought my ribs cracked. I scooped half my porridge into her bowl, split the rest between Mom and Qingtang. I've been lying around too long, I said in the lazy voice the old me always used. Stomach's too weak for thick stuff. Oh, all right then. I'll make you egg custard later, Mom said, immediately buying it. I slurped my watered-down porridge and thought one single thought. After this meal, I'm going to the mountain. That night, I went to bed early, pretended to sleep, and waited. When the moon was a tiny sliver hanging in the sky, around 3 in the morning, I crept out of bed like a burglar in my own house. Found a dusty old hunting bow buried under junk in the storage shed. Grandpa's bow. The string was still decent. 7 arrows left, a little rusty but sharp enough to ruin somebody's day. I strapped that bow to my back, grabbed a machete, packed some snake-repellent powder, and slipped out into the night like a very hungry, very desperate ghost. The whole village was dead silent. Not even the dogs bothered waking up. I headed straight for Wild Wolf Ridge. Yeah, that's the actual name. And no, it did not fill me with confidence. By the time I reached the base of the mountain, I was wheezing like a man 3 times my age. Strength, 2. Constitution, 2. Walking uphill was my boss fight. I leaned against a tree, ate half a grain cake, drank some water from a bamboo tube, and dragged myself into the forest. Soak my pants. Fog swallowed everything. Dead leaves crunched under my feet, no matter how carefully I stepped. I scattered snake powder on my shoes, grabbed a thick branch for a walking stick, and kept my ears on maximum alert. Deep in the woods, strange birds screamed. Things rustled in bushes. My legs felt like wet noodles, and my head still had a bump the size of a dumpling. Then I froze. 30 steps ahead, next to a fallen dead tree, sat a fat gray rabbit. Ears straight up, little mouth going chomp 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 on something. My heart nearly punched through my ribs. There you are. My hand reached back for the bow. Grand opening of Hyokyuji's hunting career, and buddy, you're the first customer. I sized up the distance, slowed my breathing, and started creeping toward that rabbit like the world's most underfed ninja. Got to about 20 steps away when the little jerk suddenly lifted its head, ears swiveling like satellite dishes. I dropped flat against the ground and froze. 1 second, 2 seconds. The rabbit looked around, decided nothing interesting was happening, and went back to munching grass roots. Cool, 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 cool. My heart was only beating at approximately 9,000 beats per minute. I raised the bow. The archery skill kicked in automatically. My brain suddenly knew things my body had never practiced. I pulled the string back halfway, lined up the shot, and the rabbit looked up. Its beady black eyes locked directly onto mine. I released. The arrow whistled out and grazed the rabbit's butt. Just clipped its back leg, ripping out a tuft of gray fur. Are you kidding me? The rabbit squealed and launched itself into a thorn bush like a furry cannonball. I cursed, slapped another arrow onto the string, and fired blindly into the shaking bushes because honestly, what did I have to lose? A meaty thunk echoed back. The bushes twitched twice, then went still. No way. No way. Wild rabbit killed. Free attribute point 1, archery proficiency. 1 out of 10, I dumped that point straight into Constitution without a millisecond of hesitation. A warm current flooded through my body like someone had turned on the hot water after 3 years of cold showers. The aching, jelly-legged weakness that had been haunting me just melted away. I crashed through the thorn bushes and yanked out my prize. 4 pounds of dead rabbit, heavy and beautiful. Enough meat for the whole family to remember what food is supposed to taste like. While pulling out the arrow, I spotted something in the grass nearby. 6 wild pheasant eggs sitting in a little nest, just waiting for me like nature's apology gift. Today was MY Day. I wrapped the eggs in leaves like they were made of gold, stuffed everything in my basket, and kept hunting. Half an hour later, I spotted 2 pheasants pecking around on a slope. Drew my bow, held my breath, released. The arrow clipped one pheasant's wing as both birds exploded into panicked flight and vanished into the forest. Gone. Not even a feather left behind. I wasn't mad. Okay, I was a little mad. But when I went to retrieve my arrow, I found the tip was bent beyond repair. Useless now. Then I noticed blood on the mangled arrowhead. Wait, I did hit one. I dropped to my knees and followed the blood trail like a detective in the world's most important missing persons case. Didn't have to go far. Found the pheasant slumped under a pine tree, trying to peck at its own wounded wing like that was going to fix anything. I knocked another arrow. This time, everything just clicked. The release was smooth, the trajectory was perfect, and the arrow punched clean through the bird's neck. It dropped without so much as a twitch. Wild pheasant killed. Free attribute point 1, archery proficiency. 4 out of 10, 3 points of proficiency from 1 shot. And then, a ball of grayish light floated up from the pheasant's body and flew straight into my chest. Talent acquired. Alertness, white tier. Enhanced hearing, basic danger sense, a talent drop. From a pheasant. In the game, you could grind low-level mobs for weeks and never see a talent. I'd been hunting for like 2 hours and already hit the jackpot. The talent tier system goes white, green, blue, red, purple, gold. So this was bottom tier, sure, but having a built-in danger radar when you're a weakling with noodle arms in a mountain full of things that want to eat you? Priceless. I dumped my new attribute point into strength. The moment it registered, the bow that had been killing my arms suddenly felt like a toy. I could pull it to nearly full draw without breaking a sweat. Feeling confident, I pushed deeper into the forest, and then proceeded to find absolutely nothing for the next hour. Not a rabbit, not a bird, not even a particularly ambitious squirrel. Either my luck meter had emptied or every hunter in the county had already cleaned this place out. My stomach was staging a full rebellion when I decided to head back. I took one step. Every hair on my body stood up at once. My scalp went electric. The new alertness talent was screaming. I looked up. On a branch right above me, coiled like a gray-brown spring, was a pit viper. Short, thick, triangular head, dark belly markings, the works. Village elders called these things branding irons, because getting bit was like getting stamped with a hot iron, except instead of a scar you got death. And this snake had already noticed me. Its head was rising, neck curving into that classic S shape that means, I am about to ruin your entire life. My hand ripped the machete from my belt before my brain finished processing the thought. And here's the weird part. In that moment of maximum terror, my mind went completely calm. Crystal clear. Like someone had pressed the slow motion button on reality. The viper launched at my face. One swing. Clean. Decisive. The snake's head separated from its body mid-flight, and both pieces hit the ground in different directions. The headless body was still thrashing around like a nightmare noodle while I backpedaled at light speed. Then I threw the machete at the severed head, because old village wisdom says a dead snake's head can still bite you. And I was not about to survive a pit viper attack only to die from a decapitated head with a grudge. The machete split the head in two. Problem permanently solved. Pit viper killed. Free attribute points 2. 2 points from 1 kill. I nearly collapsed from relief. Then nearly collapsed for real because my entire back was drenched in cold sweat. If that alertness talent hadn't gone off, I'd be lying on the forest floor foaming at the mouth right now. Rookie mistake, too. The snake repellent powder on my pants had worn off ages ago, and I hadn't even noticed. Lesson learned. The mountain doesn't care about your attribute points. I split the 2 points between strength and constitution. My stats now read, strength 4, constitution 4, agility 2. That floaty, about to faint feeling? Completely gone. I finally felt like a functional human being instead of a walking medical emergency. Time to go home before this mountain decided to test me again. By the time I got back to the village, the sun was fully up. Smoke was rising from chimneys, and the gossip squad was already assembled under the big tree by the village entrance. A bunch of women sewing shoes and trading rumors like they were currency. The second they spotted me, the whispers started. Wastrel, family curse. Why didn't heaven just take him? Real warm welcome, ladies. Thanks so much. Every person I passed on the road dodged away from me like I was carrying plague. Wouldn't even look at me. To be fair, the previous owner of this body had earned every bit of that reputation. Still, walking through a village where everyone thinks you're human garbage is an experience. I kept my chin up. They were talking about the old me. The new management had different plans. Before I even reached my front gate, I could hear Mom wailing in the courtyard. Husband, go get the village chief. Send people to look for second son. He's still hurt. Dad's voice came back flat and bitter. Look for him? So the whole village can laugh at us more? That animal probably took the bow and knife to sell for gambling money. I pushed the gate open. Every pair of eyes in that courtyard locked onto me like targeting systems. Mom had been standing in the middle of the yard with her hands on her hips, mid-panic. The moment she saw me, she practically tackled me. Second son, where did you go? You nearly killed your mother with worry. I swung the bamboo basket off my back and grinned. Relax, I just took a little walk up the mountain. Dad stared at me, at the bow still on my back, the machete still at my waist, and his jaw dropped. You went hunting? Sure did. Mom, Dad, check out what I brought home. I reached over and flipped the leaves off the top of my basket. Mom's eyes nearly popped out of her skull when she saw what was inside that basket. Second son, you hunted all this. Little Xiaopin was already doing laps around the basket, clapping her tiny hands like a seal at a circus. Meat. We have meat. Qingtang big sis, come look. Brother brought meat. Dad pulled out the rabbit and inspected the wound with the critical eye of a man who knows his way around a kill. His face went suspicious. One arrow through the neck. Since when do you know how to shoot a bow? Fair question. The old me had tried learning from Dad exactly once, quit after 3 days because it was too hard, and never touched a bow again. World-class quitter, that guy. I scratched the back of my head and grinned. You know, just the basics you taught me back then. Turns out I might actually have some talent. H. Mom screamed like she'd seen a ghost and stumbled backward. Dad's hand shot into the basket and yanked out the headless pit viper from the bottom. It's dead, he said calmly, examining it. Head's gone. Looks like a branding iron viper. Mom's face went white as rice paper. She lunged at me and started stripping my clothes off right there in the yard, checking every inch of skin for bite marks like a frantic airport security scanner. I kept the whole. Snake literally flew at my face and tried to murder me. Story to myself. No need to give Mom a heart attack on top of everything else. Relax, I had snake powder on me. What kind of dumb snake would mess with this guy? I just happened to find this one and took care of it. She did not believe me. She checked me 3 more times before finally accepting I wasn't dying. Annoying? Maybe. But honestly, having someone care that much about whether you're alive? That warm feeling in my chest was worth every second of being patted down like a criminal. Look at my face. I'm completely fine, right? They all stared at me, and yeah, even I had to admit, I looked different. My color was back to normal. I was standing straighter. The scrawny, half-dead look was gone. The stat boosts were showing on the outside. Mom clasped her hands together and started praying to the sky. Thank you, Buddha. Thank you. I'm going to burn the biggest incense stick at the temple. Great, great. Mom, I'm starving. Can we eat? Also, let's do that pheasant for lunch, fry up those wild eggs, and give this family a proper meal for once. Dad, clean up the rabbit skin. We can sell it for a few coins. And just like that, the whole household came alive. Xiaopin ran off to warm up breakfast for me. Qingtang followed Mom to the kitchen to prep the pheasant. Right before she disappeared through the kitchen door, Qingtang turned and gave me this look. Hard to describe. Confused, curious, like she was trying to figure out who replaced the useless idiot she'd been stuck with for 2 years. I checked her stats. Affection, -28. Up 2 points from this morning. We're in business, baby. Only 28 more points of hatred to go before we hit 0. The climb begins. Dad picked up the old hunting bow and frowned. This thing's falling apart. See these cracks? It's got maybe a few more uses before it snaps. If you're serious about hunting, I'll make you a new one. My eyes lit up like lanterns. But, he added, your head's still healing. No more mountain trips for a few days. I'll introduce you to old son the hunter in the next village. He can show you the ropes. Dad only dared give me advice when Mom wasn't around to baby me. Smart man. Dad, my head's fine. Sitting at home is driving me crazy. He gave me the dad look. Then come with me to the county town tomorrow. We'll sell the snake skin and rabbit fur. Might get a few copper coins. Translation: he wanted to personally escort me to make sure I didn't sneak off to a gambling den. Also smart. Deal. Xiaopin called me in for breakfast. I inhaled a bowl of grain porridge and then caught a whiff of myself. 4 days of fever sweat, plus a morning of mountain hiking plus dead animal blood. I smelled like a biological weapon. Bath time. In ancient China, this means boil water, haul it to a wooden tub, sit in it, scoop water over yourself with a gourd. Peak luxury. I was mid-scrub when someone knocked on the door. Who is it? Your mother sent me to scrub your back. Qingtang's voice. I raised an eyebrow so high it nearly left my face. The old me wouldn't have let her within 10 feet. She wouldn't have offered, either. But Mom clearly saw her son acting like a functional human being for the first time in recorded history and immediately activated Operation Lock Down the Fiancé. I positioned a cloth over the strategic areas. Come in. She walked in with a small basin, knelt behind me, what a cloth, and started wiping my back. Professional. Efficient. No nonsense. Can you press my shoulders a bit? They're killing me. She glanced at my grin, immediately looked away, and said nothing. But a moment later, Two calloused hands landed on my shoulders and started kneading. Not too hard, not too soft, and she hit every pressure point like she had a medical degree. I let out a sigh so satisfied it probably sounded inappropriate. Then I felt how rough her palms were against my skin and grabbed her hand without thinking. She froze solid. Tried to pull back. Couldn't. I looked at her hand. This girl used to do embroidery. Used to have soft, pampered fingers. Now her knuckles stuck out. Her palm was covered in calluses from 2 years of hard labor in a house that couldn't feed her. Ching-tang, I promise I'll treat you right from now on. She flinched. Pulled at her hand once, twice. Couldn't break free. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Second son. Just stop gambling. That's all I ask. That hit me right in the chest. Her bar was so low it was underground. Please just stop destroying everything. Was her version of a dream life. The previous me had really done a number on these people. While I was lost in thought, she yanked her hand free with everything she had, overcorrected, and started falling backward. I grabbed her wrist and pulled a little too hard. She tumbled forward and crashed directly into my chest. In the wooden bathtub, where I was sitting, wet, and through her soaked clothes, pressed against me, I could very clearly confirm that Miss Shin Ching-tang, despite looking thin as a reed from the outside, was hiding an absolutely elite figure underneath all those baggy peasant clothes. 93 potential charm was not just a face stat, apparently. Her entire head turned the color of a ripe tomato. She scrambled out of my arms and fled the room without looking back. Didn't even close the door. I sat alone in my wooden tub, touched my nose, and smiled the smile of a man who had just received very encouraging market research. After the bath, I spent the afternoon learning from Dad how to whittle arrow shafts, carving branches straight, drilling holes in the tips, gluing pheasant feathers on the ends for fletching. We'll buy proper arrowheads and fish glue in town tomorrow, he said. Meanwhile, the kitchen was producing smells that should be classified as a controlled substance. When the pheasant and mushroom stew finally hit the table, this family sat down together like it was a state banquet. The soup had wild mushrooms floating in it, a shimmering layer of golden oil on top, and a smell so good it could make a monk break his vows. Mom put a drumstick in my bowl first. You're still recovering. Eat more. Then she gave Dad the other drumstick. The girls each got a wing. Dad immediately put his drumstick back in Mom's bowl. I used to eat meat all the time when I was younger. Don't need it. Mom side-eyed him and swapped it for a piece of breast meat instead. Watching them push food back and forth, treating a single chicken like it was a royal feast, my throat tightened. This family had been stretched so thin for so long that chicken meat was a once-in-a-lifetime event. I bit into my piece. Oh, my God. Just rough salt and wild mushrooms. That's all that was in this soup. And it was the most delicious thing I had ever tasted in either of my lives. I almost cried into my bowl. 4 days of watered-down porridge and mystery herbs. And finally, actual food. We annihilated everything. Bones picked clean. Soup soaked up with grain cakes. Every last drop gone. Mom saved 1 extra bowl of meat in the pot specifically for me. I was in the yard helping Dad with arrows when, bang, 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 bang. Someone was pounding on our front gate like they were trying to break it down. Mom grabbed her broom and marched over. Who is it? What's all that banging? The gate flew open. Someone literally kicked it in. For thick-necked thugs in short jackets stormed into our courtyard. Faces like brick walls. Attitudes like debt collectors. Because that's exactly what they were. Where's Huqji? Get out here. Mom went nuclear. Who are you calling out? This is my house. Dad said nothing. He just quietly tightened his grip on the machete and stared at them with cold eyes. I looked at the 4 goons and felt a spark of recognition. The previous me knew these guys, but the memories were fuzzy. The leader, built like a refrigerator with a face like mashed potatoes, reached into his jacket, pulled out a piece of paper, and waved it at me. Huqji, you owe boss my silver. Time to pay up, of course. Of course the old me left behind gambling debts. Because why would anything be easy? All right, now I remembered who these clowns were. Goons from Boss Ma's Lucky Fortune gambling house. The previous me, that absolute genius, had actually borrowed loan shark money from a gambling den, connected to the local government. The kind of loan where they break things that don't grow back. 5 tails? I said, checking the number. The fat one spat on the ground. 5 tails was the principal, you moron. Black ink on white paper, borrow 5. Repay 20 within 1 month. Think you can dodge? Think again. 20. Tails. Of. Silver. If I could somehow reach into the afterlife and drag the original Hwakyuji's soul back, I would beat him so hard his ancestors would feel it. Who borrows loan shark money from a gambling house? A farming family in this era works themselves half to death all year and maybe saves 2 taels after taxes and food. 20 taels might as well be 20 million. Mom's legs gave out. Qingtang caught her before she hit the ground. Dad was gripping his machete so hard his knuckles were white, chest heaving like a bellows. I stepped forward and checked the debt note. The handwriting was the previous me's all right. 2 years of private school produced exactly enough literacy to sign his own death warrant. 20 taels, confirmed. But the deadline was 5 days away. The due date isn't for 5 more days. Showing up at my door early isn't exactly playing by the rules, is it? A tall, skinny goon let out a nasty laugh. We're just giving your family a friendly reminder, second brother. Better start pawning everything you own. Then his eyes slid over to Qingtang, and his smile turned absolutely disgusting. If you're short on cash, you could always send your little fiancé to keep Boss Ma company. As long as she treats him real nice. My palm connected with his face before my brain even finished processing the sentence. The slap spun him a full 180 degrees. He hit the ground, but first like a sack of garbage. Keep her name out of your filthy mouth. The other 3 exploded. Sleeves rolled up, fists swinging, cursing my mother, my ancestors, my future children. The full package. You dare hit us? Mom. Bless this woman. Grabbed her broom and went berserk on 2 of them, wailing away at their heads like she was fighting off a bear invasion. They literally couldn't get past her. I kicked the 3rd one down myself. The fat leader saw his opening, snatched the broom away from Mom, and was about to swing, thwack. An arrow whistled past his neck close enough to give him a shave and buried itself in the courtyard wall, shaft still vibrating. The fat man slowly touched his neck, realized he was still alive, and turned to see Dad holding the hunting bow with the expression of a man who absolutely did not miss on purpose. Get out of my house. Dad's voice was quiet, like a stone dropping into still water. The 4 thugs looked at each other, did the math on whether dying today was worth 20 taels, decided it wasn't, and shuffled out like scolded dogs. But not before dropping the classic parting line. 5 days, Hwa family. If we don't see 20 taels, Boss Ma's gonna deal with all of you. Mom slammed the gate shut, barred it, and collapsed on the ground, slapping her thighs and wailing. 20 taels. Son, how are we supposed to live? I looked at Mom crying. I looked at Dad looking like his world was ending. I clenched my fists until my knuckles cracked. Give me 5 days. I'll handle it myself. Handle it how? Qingtang's voice cut through the room like a knife. Tears streaming down her face, eyes full of nothing but disappointment. Go running back to your worthless friends? Little Xiao Pin looked at Mom crying, then at Qingtang crying, and, like a tiny emotional domino, burst into tears herself. Dad closed his eyes and threw the bow on the ground. Everyone inside. Stop embarrassing yourselves in public. Once the door was shut, Dad spoke in a voice like gravel. Wife, tomorrow I'll sell the slope land in the back valley. Sell it? Then what do we eat? Become tenant farmers? Beggars? Mom wiped her tears. Sell half at most. The rest. I'll swallow my pride and ask our son-in-law to lend us. That was when I dropped to my knees. Full kowtow. Forehead to the floor. Bang. Father. Mother. Your son has been unfilial. This kneel wasn't for me. This was for the worthless piece of trash who wrecked this family. I inherited his body, so I inherited his debts, the money and the emotional damage. Please believe in me one more time. I've changed. I'll pay this debt myself. I won't drag this family down. Mom's hand trembled as she pulled me up. Second son, if you truly turn over a new leaf, then even selling the land would be worth it. Dad slammed the table. 20 taels in 5 days. How? Hunting? Old man's son is the best hunter in the region, and he doesn't make 20 taels in a year. Time to deploy the nuclear option. The excuse I'd been saving. Dad, the truth is, I put on my best mystical face. I met the mountain god in a dream. He taught me the art of hunting. That's how I learned archery so fast. The room went dead silent. Mom's eyes went wide as dinner plates, and she grabbed my arm like I was about to float away. Son, what if it was a demon? The storyteller in town says evil spirits trick people in their dreams. Mom. When has a demon ever taught someone to hunt and told them to be a better person? The mountain god blessed me with hunting skills and the ability to grow stronger through hunting. Give me the mountain in 5 days. I'll get that 20 tails. My plan was simple. Grind small animals, stack attribute points, get strong enough to take on bigger game. Wild boars. Maybe even tigers. The deep parts of Wild Wolf Ridge were supposed to be crawling with dangerous beasts. High risk, high reward. Mom studied my face. Healthy color, straight posture, confidence she'd never seen in her son before, and actually started buying it. Husband. Look at how fast he recovered. The doctor said it would take weeks. And he brought back all that game. Maybe there really is a mountain god watching over him. Dad chewed on it for a long minute. Then he stood up. Fine. Skip the county trip tomorrow. Go hunting instead. If you come back with more game, I'll believe you. Deal. But you stay on the outer edge. Do not go deep into the mountain. Absolutely. 100%. You got it, Dad. I nodded like a bobblehead at everything. Getting permission was step 1. Following the rules exactly as stated was a separate conversation. Dad limped out of the room. Mom dragged Ching Tang into the back room to probably panic pray together. That left me with Xiao Pin, who was staring up at me with huge, wet, skeptical eyes. Big brother, did you really see the mountain god? Sure did. But you can't tell anyone, okay? She scrunched up her nose and glared at me. Tears still on her cheeks, trying to look fierce, absolutely adorable. I'm not telling anyone. You're always making stuff up. If I said that at school, Dog Leftovers and his gang would laugh at me again. She stomped off to Mom's room. I dropped onto a stool and exhaled. The mountain god story was pure desperation. But what else was I going to say? Hey, I'm actually a guy from the future living in your dead son's body with a video game interface only I can see. They'd have me exorcised by sundown. Besides, I needed a cover story for later. When my body keeps getting stronger and my skills keep improving, people are going to notice. Better they think, divine blessing. Then, demonic possession. One gets you free incense. The other gets you burned alive. It was fully dark by the time Dad came home, and he was carrying something that made my jaw drop. A proper hunting bow. Mulberry wood, expertly crafted, the limbs wrapped tight with layers of animal sinew, oiled and maintained to perfection. He'd borrowed it from Old Man Son, the professional hunter in the next village. Son's busy for a few days. You can use his gear. I pulled the string back. Had to channel every ounce of my 4 points of strength to draw it to about 80%. This thing had serious power compared to Grandpa's antique. Dad nodded approvingly. Form's not bad. Still weak, but it'll do. Then he handed me a quiver full of arrows with heads that gleamed like they meant it. Sharp. Deadly. Professional grade. My heart was singing. This was like trading in a rusty bicycle for a motorcycle. 5 days. 20 tails. 1 cheat system. Let's go hunting. The neighbor's rooster hadn't even finished its first pathetic crow when I was already out of bed, lacing up my leggings in the dark like a soldier deploying to war. Which, honestly, wasn't far off. Mom and Dad were already sitting by the oil lamp waiting for me. No idea how long they'd been there. Probably all night. Mom handed me a bowl of hot porridge with red eyes. Be careful. Please don't go into the deep mountain. She'd said this approximately 400 times since yesterday. I nodded like a good son for the 401st time. Yes, Mom. I know. Dad silently handed me the bamboo basket. I popped it open and my chest went warm. This man, this beautiful, grumpy, limping man had packed everything. Snake powder wrapped in oil paper, fire starter, skinning knife, rope, water pouch, wound powder. Mom had added 3 boiled eggs and grain cakes wrapped in cloth. I strapped on the mulberry bough, grabbed the quiver and machete, and headed out. Dad's voice hit my back at the gate. Stay sharp. Come home early. For words. Maximum dad energy. The village was dead quiet again. I hit Wild Wolf Ridge like a commuter going to work. Snake powder on the shoes. Into the trees. Business as usual. Day 2 on the job. Beginner's luck was apparently still in stock, because within 30 minutes I found a gray rabbit and put an arrow through it so clean I almost impressed myself. Rabbit killed. 1 attribute point. Archery. 5 out of 10. Dumped the point into strength. Bled the rabbit. Buried the blood under dirt. Dad taught me that one. Spend all day in the mountains with blood smell on you, and you're basically ringing a dinner bell for everything with teeth. Then, nothing. For hours. I walked until the sun was fully up and didn't see a single living creature. Changed direction, pushed closer to the deep mountain boundary, and droppings. Fresh rabbit droppings on dead leaves. Still warm when I touched them. A new notification popped up. Skill acquired. Tracking, beginner, 0 out of 10. I didn't even have time to appreciate it because 20 steps ahead, 4 fat rabbits were huddled together munching on grass roots like it was an all-you-can-eat buffet. First arrow, 1 rabbit down, clean kill. The other 3 bolted in the same direction and vanished into holes in the ground like furry magic tricks. Cute. You think a hole is going to save you? I gathered a massive armful of dry grass, lit it with the fire starter, stuffed it into the burrow entrance, and shoveled dirt on top. Smoke poured in like I was fumigating an apartment. Seconds later, the dirt plug popped open and a rabbit had appeared, gasping for air. Arrow through the skull. Next, second rabbit popped up. Arrow. Dead. Third rabbit. Arrow. Dead. They came out one by one like, I kid you not, like that cartoon where the brothers go rescue Grandpa one at a time and each one gets captured. Exact same energy. 0 learning curve. Then 8 baby bunnies tumbled out of the hole, white and fluffy and absolutely terrified. Now, a heartless man would have killed them. But a smart man? A smart man takes them home alive. Rabbits breed like rabbits. Give it a few months, and I'd have an unlimited supply of meat and fur. I packed everything into the basket. 4 fat adults bled and stacked. 8 babies nestled carefully on top. The basket was stuffed to bursting. Time to check the stats. I had enough points to bring Constitution and Agility both up to 5. The Agility boost was a game changer. Not just faster legs. My reaction time sharpened. My eyes could track movement better. Everything felt smoother. Like going from 30 frames per second to 120 frames per second in real life. All 3 stats at 5. I'd finally reached baseline. Normal healthy adult male status. No more wheezing. No more jelly legs. I felt like an actual person for the first time since arriving in this world. Archery was sitting at 9 out of 10 to the next tier. One more good shot, and I'd break through. I figured I'd run the basket home, drop off the hall, and come back for round 2 while it was still light. Solid plan. Efficient plan. Then the ground started vibrating. Small at first, then stronger. Pebbles were bouncing on the dirt. Earthquake? No. Something worse. Every alarm in my body went off simultaneously. I whipped my head around, spotted the thickest tree in range, and scrambled up it like a squirrel on espresso. The vibration came with sound. Heavy. Thundering. Hooves. 2 wild boars exploded out of the deep forest, smashing through bushes and saplings like they were made of paper. The big one, the male, was a nightmare wrapped in black bristles. 300 pounds minimum. Coarse hair stiff as pine needles. 2 curved tusks jutting from its mouth like crescent-shaped death sentences. The smaller one was female, maybe 100 pounds, no tusks, but still absolutely capable of ending my career as a living person. My back was drenched in cold sweat. I hugged that tree trunk like it owed me money. Wild boars are the tanks of the forest. Thick skin, thicker skull, permanent rage mode. A wooden arrow can't even penetrate their hide in most places. 1 tusk swipe and your intestines become outstedents. 2 boars at once. Forget it. Not even close to winnable. Please just leave. Please just walk away. I'll deal with you later when I have actual stats. The male started rooting around in the exact spot where I'd buried the rabbit blood earlier. Its massive snout plowed through the dirt like a bulldozer. The female waddled over to my basket at the base of the tree and started nudging it around. Oh no, my rabbits. My babies. The male found nothing in the blood spot, snorted around in circles, and I was mentally chanting, "Don't look up, don't look up, don't look up, don't look up." It looked up. Its beady little eyes met mine. Those eyes turned red. Back hooves started pawing the ground like a bull in a cartoon, except this wasn't funny. This was 300 pounds of pork-flavored death about to. It charged the tree. What did I ever do to you? Did I sleep with your wife? Did I eat your children? What is your problem? Terror passed. My brain went cold and crystal clear. I ripped an arrow from the quiver and drew the bow. No choice now. We're doing this. Boars look slow until they're running at you. Then they're terrifyingly fast. I aimed for the neck and released. The boar hit the tree a split second later. The whole trunk shuddered so hard I nearly fell. I bear-hugged the trunk and held on for dear life. The arrow bounced off near the shoulder blade. Cut the skin, didn't penetrate. Might as well have flicked it with a rubber band. But on the bright side, archery, beginner intermediate, 0 out of 100. The boar shook its massive head, backed up a few meters, and lowered for another charge. The female was circling nearby, waiting for her turn to murder me. I stared at that charging 300-pound monster, and everything went quiet. Sound disappeared. Fear disappeared. The whole world narrowed down to one arrow point and one bloodshot pig eye getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I pulled the mulberry bow to absolute full draw, a perfect crescent moon, and released. Intermediate level archery. Full power. Maximum precision. The arrow punched straight into the boar's eye socket and sank into its brain. Die. Archery. Intermediate 1 out of 100. The boar let out a scream that made my bones rattle. But 300 pounds of momentum doesn't just stop. It slammed into the tree anyway. Crack. The tree trunk snapped in half. I jumped before the tree fell, hit the ground hard, legs screaming with pain, and scrambled behind another tree on pure adrenaline. And that boar, with an arrow sticking out of its eye socket, was still alive, still standing, blood pouring down its face like a horror movie poster, swaying left and right, and still trying to come at me. You have got to be kidding me. I ducked behind a tree as the one-eyed boar came screaming at me like a freight train made of hatred and bacon. The pain had made it angrier. It was faster than before. Because of course it was. I raised my bow to shoot, and my alertness talent went absolutely haywire in my brain. Danger. Not from the front. From the side. Heavy hooves. Behind me. Getting closer. I threw myself sideways on pure instinct. A wall of stinking pig flesh blasted past my face, so close I could smell what it had for breakfast. The mother. She'd snuck around behind me while I was focused on her psycho husband and tried to blindside me. She skidded to a stop, turned around, eyes blazing red, and charged again. I rolled toward a tree root and barely dodged. Meanwhile, Daddy Pig had slammed into the tree I'd been hiding behind, and the arrow sticking out of his eye socket. The impact snapped the shaft and drove the remaining half deeper into his brain. He collapsed, legs kicking wildly, thrashing and screaming on the ground. One down. Sort of. He was still twitching, but clearly checking out. That left Mama Pig. Smaller, no tusks, but still 100 pounds of furious pork that very much wanted me dead. I used the trees as cover, dodging 2 more charges, squeezing off 2 arrows between runs. She was slowing down, breathing hard, running out of gas. So was I? My arms felt like overcooked noodles. My lungs were on fire. Everything hurt. I reached back for another arrow and grabbed nothing. Empty quiver. All my arrows had scattered across the forest floor during my acrobatic rolling and diving routine. Fantastic. Beautiful. Chef's kiss. Then a white light smashed into me and the system panel popped up. Healthy wild boar killed. 4 free attribute points. Talent acquired. Brute strength. White. 20% strength amplifier. Side effect. Increased appetite. Daddy Pig had finally died. And he left me the perfect gift. 3 points into strength. 1 into constitution. No hesitation. My strength hit 8, plus the 20% bonus from brute strength. That was effectively 9.6. Almost the combined power of 2 grown men. Energy surged through my body like someone plugged me into a wall socket. The exhaustion that had been crushing me moments ago just lifted. I looked at the wheezing, panting Mama Pig in front of me. She looked back at me. Something in my face must have changed, because for the first time, she hesitated. I smiled. Not a nice smile. My turn. I dropped the bow, pulled the machete from my belt, and charged. She actually flinched, backed up 2 steps, then tried to run. Too late, sweetheart. I closed the distance in 2 strides, gripped the machete with both hands, and swung with everything I had into her side. The impact nearly ripped the blade from my hands. The kickback jolted up through my wrists and into my shoulders like I'd hit a concrete wall. Mountain pig skin is genuinely ridiculous. But it went through. She screamed and crumpled. A gash opened up in her ribs so deep I could see bone. Blood everywhere. I didn't give her time to get up. Brought the machete down on her throat. 1 clean, savage chop, straight through the windpipe. She kicked twice and went still. Wild boar killed. 3 free attribute points. I bent over, hands on knees, gasping like I'd just sprinted a marathon. Every muscle was screaming. Scrapes and bruises covered every inch of me. My shoulder was one giant purple splotch and my arm felt like it was held on with tape. But I was alive. And at my feet were 400 pounds of premium wild boar. I checked the machete. The blade Dad had sharpened to a mirror finish that morning was now chipped and dented. Mountain pig, 1, machete, 0. Now came the real problem. 2 boars, for 100 combined pounds, and I was 8 or 9 miles from the village. Dragging them home alone was impossible, and leaving them here was basically setting out a buffet for wolves and leopards. Then I remembered, earlier, while scouting for rabbits, I'd spotted an old collapsed hunting pit nearby, less than 100 steps away. Perfect temporary storage. I dumped all 3 free points into strength. Hit 10. Tried to add more, and nope. System said no. Turns out once any stat hits 10, you need all 3 stats at 10 before you can break through. And after that, each point costs 5 attribute points instead of 1. So I put the last point into Constitution instead. Got some stamina back. Fine. Quick stat check. Strength, 10. Constitution, 7. Agility, 5. Talents, alertness, white. Brute strength, white. Archery. Intermediate, 2 out of 100. Tracking. Beginner, 0 out of 10. 2 days ago, I was a bedridden noodle person with 2s across the board. Now I had the raw strength of 2 men, danger radar, and a 20% power bonus on top. If this was a mobile game, I'd be speedrunning the early levels. With 10 strength and the brute strength boost, dragging the boars was still hard, but manageable. I hauled them to the pit, buried them under branches, leaves, and dirt, marked the spot, and started the trek home. Ate my grain cakes and eggs on the walk back, carving trail markers into trees as I went so I could find the stash later. Getting close to the village, I could see chimney smoke rising from rooftops. Kids were playing on the road. One of them looked very familiar, little Xiao Pin. Pigtails bouncing, running toward me with a big smile. Big BRO. She got close enough to actually see me. The torn clothes. The scratches everywhere. The massive bloodstains. Her smile died instantly. Her lip started trembling. Then she spun around and sprinted back toward home, screaming at the top of her lungs. Mwmm. Ching Tong, big sis. Wah, second brother is dying again. My smile froze on my face like someone had hit the pause button. Again? What do you mean, again? I'm standing right here. I'm fine. Her voice carried like a foghorn. Every kid on the road scattered in terror. Doors started opening. Neighbors poured out. The gossip network activated at the speed of sound. What happened to the whole boy now? Wasn't he just knocked out a few days ago? Going to the mountains, really? Probably trying to pay off that debt. Desperate fool. Before I could explain to anyone that I was not, in fact, dying, a piercing wail cut through the crowd like a knife. My soon, Mom, came tearing down the road, skirt hiked up, arms pumping, face contorted in maximum grief mode, neighbors diving out of her path like she was a runaway cart. She reached me, opened her mouth to unleash the full mourning protocol, and I grabbed her shoulders before she could start. MOM. I'm fine. Look at me. I'm fine. She blinked. Looked at my face. Rosy color. Standing straight. Actually looking healthier and more muscular than when I'd left this morning. She wiped her tears, turned around, and hit Xiao Pin with the most devastating mom glare in recorded history. You little brat. Screaming about dying? Your brother is perfectly fine. Xiao Pin was standing there clutching her head, blinking with those big, innocent eyes. But last time brother looked like this too. When they carried him home, he was almost dead. Fair point, kid. Fair point. Mom checked me over, patted down every bloodstain, felt for wounds underneath. No holes, no cuts, just pig blood on the outside. She relaxed, but still winced looking at me like I'd been through a washing machine full of rocks. Mom, where's Dad? Still in the county. Why? Dad wasn't home. I needed muscle. My eyes scanned the crowd of gawking neighbors and landed on Lu Chuanfu, the big bearded guy from next door. Built like a barrel, roughly Dad's age, with 3 sons behind him who all looked like they could bench press a donkey. Dad and old Lu were tight. Good neighbors, always helping each other out. The previous me and Lu's boys had some mutual disrespect thing going on, but this was not the time for teenage grudges. I walked up to him. Uncle Lu, I took down 2 wild boars in the mountain. Can't carry them back alone. Could use your help. I said it casually, like I was asking to borrow a cup of flour. The crowd went nuclear. 2 boars? He's lying through his teeth. This kid couldn't pull back a bow last week. Even his father never bagged 2 boars at once. Mom's jaw was hanging so low a bird could have nested in there. Lou's second son practically yelled in my face. Point number 2. You better not be messing with us. I just nodded. Come see for yourself. Old Lou, bless him, didn't waste time on debate. Eldest, get poles and rope. We're going. I handed Mom the basket full of rabbits and baby bunnies and headed back to the mountain with the Lou men. 5 of us, following the trail markers I'd carved into the trees, straight to the collapsed pit. We dug through the cover. 2 massive wild boars stared up from the dirt. Lou's youngest, a kid a few months younger than me, completely lost his mind. Dad, boars. Actual boars. Then they looked at the wounds. Arrow through the eye socket on the male. Deep machete gash through the female's ribs. Throat chopped clean through. They all turned and stared at me with faces that said, "Who are you?" The 4 of them tied the boars to crossed poles, and we took turns carrying them back. For 100 pounds of pork, hauled through the forest and down the mountain, right through the middle of the village. Every single person we passed either dropped what they were holding or just stood there frozen. The same people who'd been calling me wastrel and family curse yesterday were now watching me parade past with 2 whole boars on poles like I was returning from war. It felt incredible. We carried them straight into our courtyard. Mom took one look and her face split into the biggest grin I'd ever seen. Uncle Lou, you are a lifesaver. I'm cutting you the best pieces tonight. Lou tried to refuse. Mom was having none of it. He eventually retreated with his boys before she could physically force meat into his pockets. Then Mom did something beautiful. She left the courtyard gate wide open. On purpose. So every single person walking by could see the 2 massive boars lying in the Hua family yard. She planted herself next to them, hands on hips, and cranked her volume to maximum broadcast mode. My son did this. On his first real hunt. 2 boars. You show me 1 young man in 10 villages who can match my second son. Just one. Little Xiao Pin was bouncing around hugging the baby bunnies, yelling, "Second brother is amazing," on repeat like a tiny hype machine. I just sat there and smiled. Mom had earned this. This family had spent months getting their spines poked by every gossip and busybody in the village because of the original me. They'd been humiliated, pitted, laughed at. Let her have her moment. She deserved to stand in that courtyard and scream. Mom eventually remembered I existed, gasped at my appearance. "You look like you fought a ghost," and raced off to boil water for me. Dad came home a little later, walking through the gate with Ching Tang, who'd been in town selling embroidered handkerchiefs for pocket money. Dad spotted the boars and his eyes lit up like firecrackers. The whole village had already told him the news on the walk home, but seeing the evidence in person hit different. He checked me head to toe. Confirmed, no serious injuries. Then he grabbed my shoulder and squeezed hard, which in dad language is basically a standing ovation. "Good boy. You really weren't bluffing your old man." Then we got down to business. Dad inspected the carcasses like an appraiser at an auction house. Pork was going for about 26 or 27 copper coins per pound in town. Male boar meat was gamey and stinky, maybe 15 or 16 coins per pound. Female was younger and less funky, 25 coins. But the skins were where the money was. The big male's hide was intact and high quality, at least 500 or 600 coins. The smaller one, maybe 200. Mom came out wiping her hands. Why not just butcher them and sell the meat cheap right here in the village? Save the trip to town, Dad agreed. Neighbors deserved a good price. Mom reminded him to set aside several pounds for the Liu family. I took my hot water bath, no back-scrubbing assistant this time, sadly, threw on clean clothes, and collapsed onto the bed to do math. 2 boars, at least 60% usable meat, plus the hides, plus the tusks which could be sold for medicine or crafts. Conservative estimate, 5 taels of silver from 1 day of hunting. 5 down, 15 to go. If I could find a few more boars, and with my current stats, I absolutely could, that 20-tael debt was looking a lot less impossible. My stats were already at a level where the deep mountain wasn't a death sentence anymore. But smart play was still to grind constitution and agility up to 10 before pushing further in. The door curtain rustled, and Ching Tang walked in holding a small ceramic bottle. Our eyes met. She looked away first. "Lie down on your stomach. I'll put medicine on your bruises." I checked her panel. Affection, -10. From -30 to -10 in 2 days. At this rate, I'd hit positive numbers by the end of the week. Progress. Beautiful progress. I peeled off my shirt and flopped face down on the bed. She poured medicinal wine into her palms, rubbed them warm, and pressed her fingers into my back. The sensation was unreal. Cool at first, then burning hot, then this wave of sore sweet tingly numb that rolled up my spine and melted my brain. Every bruise she worked on went from screaming agony to blissful relief. My whole body, which had been clenched like a fist since dawn, finally let go. "Turn over," she said quietly. I rolled onto my back. Our eyes met again. Hers were trembling slightly. She was looking at all the cuts and bruises and purple patches covering my torso, and I could see something shifting behind those eyes. The boy she'd known, the lazy, whiny, gambling-addicted waste of space who cried if he stubbed his toe, had come home looking like he'd fought a war. And won. Maybe mountain gods were real. Maybe people really could change. I lay there watching her affection score tick upward, point by point. It stopped at -5. Almost there. Almost at 0. Almost at the starting line. What a girl. Patient through years of neglect, loyal through poverty, capable hands, sharp mind, 93 potential charm, and she was rubbing medicine into the bruises of a man she had every reason to hate. First, I pay the debt. Then, I make her mine. That partner bonus on my system panel wasn't just for show, and I hadn't forgotten it for a single second. News travels fast in a village with nothing else to do. By noon, every living soul in Elm Tree Village knew that the Hua family's notorious deadbeat son had killed 2 wild boars with his bare hands and a borrowed bow. Most people were shocked. The boy actually has talent. A real prodigal son returns. A few haters shook their heads. Dumb luck. Give it a week, he'll be back at the gambling table. Sure thing, buddy. Whatever helps you sleep at night. But all opinions were immediately shelved when the real news dropped. The Hua family was selling boar meat at 12 copper coins per pound. 12 coins. Regular pork in town cost 26 or 27. Suddenly nobody cared about my gambling history, my criminal record, or my general existence as a person. Cheap meat was cheap meat. Farm families in this era see meat maybe twice a year. New Year's and one random festival if they're lucky. Boar meat is gamier than regular pork, sure, but salt cure it or smoke it into jerky, and it's perfectly fine. At 12 coins a pound, people would have bought it if it was flavored with dirt. By the time I walked out the front door, there were 50 people crammed into our yard like we were hosting a concert. Everyone suddenly wanted to be my friend. "Oh, second son, heading back to the mountain. Your family's luck is turning around. You stay away from those gambling dens now, you hear?" I nodded politely at all of them, said goodbye to my parents, and headed back to Wild Wolf Ridge. No point sitting around watching Mom sell pork. Daylight was burning. I took the morning route, stopping every few minutes to examine animal tracks and droppings on the ground. I was trying to grind the tracking skill, but the proficiency bar refused to move, just crouching over poop for no reward. The glamorous life of a transmigrator. Then my ears twitched, the alertness talent picking up something above me. I looked up. A fat brown squirrel was sitting on a pine branch, holding a pine cone in its tiny paws, absolutely destroying it like a furry little wood chipper. I slowly nocked an arrow. The moment I started pulling the bow, that squirrel looked at me, said, "Nope," and launched itself through the trees like a missile with a tail. My arrow thunked into the trunk. Squirrel was already 3 trees away, screaming insults at me in squirrel language. By the time I knocked a second arrow, it was gone. Vanished into the canopy. Speed stat, infinity. I yanked my arrow out of the tree and turned to leave, but something nagged at me. That squirrel hadn't run away at first. It had been circling the tree, agitated, like it was protecting something. I went back and checked. There was a little hole in the trunk, stuffed with dead leaves. I cleared it out and found a treasure vault, the squirrel's entire winter food stash. Pine nuts and acorns, packed tight. Sorry, buddy. War's war. Tracking. 1 out of 10. The system counted finding a hidden stash through clues as tracking experience. Good to know. Steal from enough squirrels, and I'll be a master tracker. I scooped everything into a cloth bag, over a pound of nuts, and kept moving. Soon I reached the spot where I'd fought the boars that morning. The blood on the ground had dried to a dark brown crust. I was about to walk past when I noticed something. Fresh paw prints, pressed into the dried blood mud, way bigger than a dog's. Each one wider than my clenched fist, with clear claw marks. Wolf. My heart rate spiked. I followed the tracks a few steps. Only one set of prints. A lone wolf, heading toward the deep mountain. A lone wolf. Do you know what a wolf pelt is worth? Dad said a good one fetches at least 2 taels of silver. Wolves are smart. They travel in packs. They're incredibly hard to hunt, which means the supply is low and the price is high. But a lone wolf? Separated from its pack? That's basically a walking bag of money that hasn't been collected yet. I followed the tracks. The trail led me past the outer forest, through a rocky gully, and toward the boundary of the deep mountain. My tracking skill was too low level to keep up. I kept losing the prints, finding them again, losing them. After about 30 minutes, the trail went completely cold. I crouched on a boulder and looked north. Ahead of me was the deep forest proper, massive ancient trees, canopy so thick it blocked out the sky, darkness underneath even in broad daylight. Dad had specifically told me not to come here. I went in anyway. Look, I wasn't being reckless. With my current stats, strength 10, constitution 7, agility 5, plus alertness and brute strength, I could handle most things. Probably. And I was just scouting, getting the lay of the land for future trips. The forest got denser, darker. The leaf litter was so thick my footsteps made zero sound. The air smelled like wet rot and ancient mold. Every survival instinct I had was quietly saying, maybe turn around, and I was quietly saying, no. Then I heard something ahead. Rustling. Movement. I went ghost mode. Crept forward, hid behind a thick bush, and peered through the leaves. 40 steps away, a deer was lying on the ground, licking its right hind leg. Big animal, 100+ pounds, reddish-brown coat, no antlers. A doe. And she was injured. My pulse skyrocketed. A deer was worth way more than a boar. Venison was premium meat, deerskin was premium leather, and deer blood was literally traditional medicine. I drew my bow to full moon, held my breath until the world went still, and released. The arrow drilled straight into her neck. She screamed, tried to run, but the injured back leg betrayed her. She stumbled, lurched forward maybe 50 meters, and collapsed. By the time I reached her, she'd stopped moving. Deer killed. 3 free attribute points. Archery. 3 out of 100. I crouched down to examine the body and immediately noticed the old wound on her right leg. An arrow wound. A broken shaft was still embedded in the flesh, and the skin around it was swollen and discolored. Someone else had shot this deer earlier. She'd escaped and been limping through the forest ever since. I wasn't worried about ownership disputes. She was in the deep forest, she was dying anyway, and my arrow was the one in her neck. I pulled out my water pouch, dumped the water, yanked out my arrow, and started collecting the deer blood. Liquid gold. Every drop counts. The pouch was still filling when I heard footsteps coming from deeper in the forest. 2 men emerged from the trees, both carrying hunting bows. Clearly experienced hunters from a nearby village. The older one was around 40, dark-skinned and weathered. The younger one was barely 20, holding 2 dead pheasants. The young one spotted my deer and practically sprinted over. Dad, look, that's the deer we've been tracking all day. I narrowed my eyes. My hand slid onto my bow without making a sound. Dad had never taught me the rules about disputed kills. Never told me which hunters operated in this area. And out here in the deep mountain, nobody would hear a thing. Whether these 2 were reasonable men or the kill him and take the deer type, I was about to find out. I kept my eyes locked on the 2 hunters and quietly dumped my 3 new attribute points. 1 into constitution, 2 into agility. If things went sideways, I wanted to be fast enough to drop one of them before the other could react. The older hunter pulled the younger one behind him, clasped his fists politely, and smiled. Don't think I've seen you around. Which village are you from, young brother? I didn't answer. Just stared. He didn't seem offended. We're from Rocky Fort. Name's He Who. This is my nephew, He Lin. He Who. That name rang a bell. Dad had mentioned him, the best hunter around Wild Wolf Ridge. Former military bowman from the northern border. The man had seen actual combat. I glanced at the bow on his back. Heavy. Powerful. A real war-grade weapon. My borrowed mulberry bow suddenly felt like a toy. The arrow in the deer's leg, I said. Yours? The nephew jumped in, voice dripping with annoyance. Obviously. We chased that thing for over an hour. Then you swooped in and took the kill. He Who calmly pulled an arrow from his quiver and showed me the shaft, painted with black lacquer. His signature mark. Then he put it back. Let's follow the rules, young brother. Fair. What rules? I asked, because nobody had ever taught me any. The nephew stared at me like I'd just asked what the sun was. Finder's share? Split by contribution? You seriously don't know this? He who explained it simply. Since I made the killing shot, I get the lion's share, 70%. They get 30 for wounding it first and driving it my way. Deal. I exhaled so hard I nearly deflated. 70% of a whole deer was a lot of money, and honestly, they had a point. If they hadn't put that arrow in its leg and slowed it down, I probably never would have gotten close enough for a clean shot. A healthy deer would have heard me breathing from 100 steps away and vanished. Plus, I was the new guy on the mountain. Respect the rules. Don't make enemies. He who pulled out a hunting knife, a real one, not a farm machete, and started butchering the deer with a speed and precision that made me deeply uncomfortable. His cuts were surgical. The meat separated from bone like he'd done this 10,000 times, which he probably had. The man was generous, too. Gave me all the premium cuts and kept the scraps and the wounded leg for himself. I watched his blade flash in the fading light and thought, thank God this guy plays fair. If he'd wanted to take everything by force, I'm not sure I could have stopped him. When we finished dividing the meat, the nephew, Lin, turned to me with a serious face. Listen, kid, don't come into the deep mountain alone. See that slope over there? There's a wolf pack behind it. We only hunt around the edges ourselves. I immediately told them about the lone wolf tracks I'd found near the boar kill site. He whose face went grim. Those 2 boars you killed were probably chased out of the deep forest by the wolf pack. That lone wolf you tracked? Likely a scout. Get out of here, young brother. And don't come back alone. It's not just wolves. Things have been unsettled in these mountains the last few years. Yeah, Lin added helpfully. There's also the old mountain lord. You know, the one they say learned to talk, mountain lord. The local respectful nickname for a tiger. Because apparently calling it a tiger is rude and might summon it. Whether a tiger could actually talk was a question I filed under. Probably not, but I'm not going to test that theory. I thanked them both sincerely, and we went our separate ways. The sky was already going dark. I hoisted my massive slab of venison onto my shoulder and speed-walked home. It was well past 8 when I stumbled into Elm Tree Village. Every house was dark and shuttered. No nightlife in ancient rural China. Everybody's asleep by sunset. The only lamp still burning was in our courtyard. The second I pushed the gate open, Mom materialized like she'd been standing behind it for 3 hours. Which she probably had. Why are you so late? I was still carrying half a deer on my shoulder. Ran into a deer. Took a while. Mom's face went from panic to pure sunshine in 0.2 seconds. My son. One day, boars and a deer. Nobody can match. Dad walked out with his arms crossed and his disappointed face on. Do you know how dangerous mountain roads are at night? Don't do this again. Yes, Dad. Can you help me hang this meat and the deer leg in the well to keep cold? Need to sell it first thing tomorrow. Dad looked at the venison. His stern expression cracked. His voice got noticeably softer. You really do have that mountain god's blessing. Most hunters go a whole year without seeing a single deer. I told him about meeting he who, the split, the rules. He nodded approvingly. He who's the most honorable hunter around here. My fault. Should have explained all this to you before you went out, Mom chimed in. They also say the mountain lord deep in the forest can mimic human speech. Nobody's actually seen it, but you never know. Second son, you are banned from the deep mountain, I sighed internally. The outer forest was almost hunted clean. Relying on random rabbit encounters wasn't going to pay off a 20-tailed debt. My system gave me an edge that no ordinary hunter had. But with both parents putting their foot down, I could only nod and comply. For now, once I started bringing home wolves and tigers, they'd come around. Then Dad pulled something out of my basket, and his eyes went wide. A deer tendon. This, he said, holding it up like a holy relic, is exactly what I need to make you a real bow. Once it's dried and cured, I can build you a sinew and horn composite bow, the same kind the border army uses. 3 times stronger than that mulberry bow you're borrowing. A military-grade composite bow. With that kind of firepower, mountain boars would go from life-threatening boss fights to casual farming content. My exhaustion evaporated on the spot. Mom rolled her eyes at both of us. Stop standing around drooling over bow parts and come eat. Inside, Ching Tang was warming up dinner for me in the kitchen. Xiaopin was already asleep. My stomach had been screaming since noon. I'd left on just one bowl of thin porridge and hadn't eaten a real meal since. While I inhaled food, Mom sat across from me counting copper coins on the table, running me through the day's finances like a tiny rural CFO. The big boar sold out in the village, 2,600 coins. The small one went to the restaurant in town for one tael and 300 coins. Big pigskin sold for 500 coins. Small skin plus rabbit furs, another 300. We bought some grain, and after everything, she straightened the coin strings proudly. 5 taels and 100 coins. Plus about 40 loose coppers, 5 taels. In one day? From nothing. Mom, hold on to it all. When we hit 20, we pay off the debt in full. She nodded and carefully locked the coins and silver pieces into a wooden box. Then she pushed the 40-some loose coppers across the table to me. Keep some money on you. For emergencies. Your father and I trust you. We know you won't go back to that road. I picked up a single copper coin and stared at it. These two people, who'd watched their son steal from them, gamble away their life savings, and nearly destroy the family, were handing me money and saying, "We trust you." I squeezed the coin until it dug into my palm. Mom, I will never go back. I promise. And unlike the promises the old me made, this one was going to stick. Woke up before dawn on day 3 of my hunting career. 0 soreness. 0 stiffness. After yesterday's all-day mountain brawl with 2 wild boars, a deer chase, and enough walking to qualify for a marathon, my body felt like it had just come back from a spa vacation. Constitution at 10 was no joke. Recovery speed went from elderly man after a long staircase to professional athlete after a nap. I grabbed leftover grain cakes, filled the water pouch, strapped on the bow, and snuck out before Mom could recite her "Don't go to the deep mountain" speech for the 500th time. The outer forest was turning into a wasteland. I spent almost an hour finding one measly pheasant. 1. The hunting grounds were drying up faster than my patience. I looked at the sky, looked at the deep forest, looked at the sky again. Sorry, Dad. Sorry, Mom. The outer rim is a dead zone. Deep mountain it is. I hadn't gone far when a bunch of birds exploded off the treetops ahead of me. Something had spooked them. I dropped low, drew my bow halfway, and crept forward. A fat brown badger waddled out of the bushes. Round as a bowling ball, beady little eyes spinning in every direction, looking absolutely ridiculous. Don't think being cute is going to save you. First arrow hit its hind leg. It screamed and dragged itself forward. Second arrow finished the job. Badger killed. 2 attribute points, archery. 6 out of 100, 20+ pounds of badger. The meat was too gamey to sell, but badger oil? Miracle cure for burns and frostbite. Keeping that for the family medicine cabinet. The badger filled my entire basket. Had to hang the pheasant off the outside like a Christmas ornament. I had 3 points to spend. 2 into Constitution, 1 into Agility. Stats now, Strength 10, Constitution 10, Agility 8. 2 more Agility points, and I'd hit the full 10-10-10 breakthrough. Kept pushing deeper. And then my spine turned to ice. Alertness went screaming. I didn't even look around. Just found the nearest big tree and climbed it like my life depended on it, which it absolutely did. 8 points of agility made me scale that trunk like a monkey on fast forward. From my perch, I saw them. 5 gray wolves, chasing a yellow antelope through the undergrowth. A wolf pack, and the antelope was running straight toward my tree. I held my breath, knocked an arrow, and waited. The antelope was running on fumes. Legs wobbling, speed dropping. One wolf lunged from the side and clamped down on its hind leg. The antelope went absolutely berserk, kicked that wolf so hard it flew backward several steps, and kept running. Didn't matter. Another wolf hit it from the front, jaws closing on its throat. Game over for the antelope. I scanned the pack carefully. 5 wolves, solid coordination, clearly experienced killers. But no alpha in sight. No hidden flankers in the bushes. Just these 5, focused entirely on their meal. One of them ripped open the antelope's belly. Blood and guts everywhere. Now or never. First arrow, buried deep into the waist of the wolf eating the antelope. It howled in agony. The other 4 scattered backward in alarm, but I already had my second arrow on the string. Targeted the smallest wolf. Arrow through the neck. It dropped without a sound. Gray wolf killed. 3 points. No time for stats. 3 wolves still moving. They turned tail and bolted. Everything went quiet inside my head. That zone. That crystal-clear sniper state where the whole world narrows to one arrow and one target. Third arrow chased the fleeing wolf like a heat-seeking missile, punched into the back of its neck. Down. Fourth arrow aimed at the last runner, but it was already at the edge of my range. The arrow lost altitude at the end and only caught its hind leg. The wolf stumbled, yelped, and limped into the deep forest with its surviving buddy. 2 escaped. 3 down. I turned back to the gut-shot wolf, still struggling on the ground, and put a mercy arrow through it. Strong gray wolf killed. 4 points. Archery. 13 out of 100. 3 wolves, 1 antelope. I opened the stat panel and my hands started shaking. 11 free attribute points. 11. From 1 engagement. I almost fell out of the tree from excitement. Deep breaths. Focus. 2 points into agility. Agility hit 10. All 3 stats at 10. The moment the numbers aligned, something inside me just broke open. Not painfully, like chains falling off. My entire body went through a transformation in the span of a few heartbeats. My eyes sharpened until I could count individual leaves on distant trees. My ears picked up sounds I'd never noticed before. My nose. I could literally smell the wounded wolf's blood trail from where I was standing, distinct and clear like a painted line on the ground. I threw a few test punches. The air snapped. My fists moved exactly when and where I wanted them. 0 delay between thought and action. Every muscle, every tendon, every fiber was synchronized like a machine. I dumped 1 more point into strength. 11. The power surge was even more intense than before, denser, heavier, more real. 4 points left over. Not enough for another strength boost at the new rate, so I pocketed them for later. I hopped down from the tree, grinning like an idiot, and surveyed my loot. 3 dead wolves. 1 dead antelope. A fortune in pelts and meat lying on the forest floor. I bled all 4 carcasses, dragged them into the bushes, ringed the area with snake powder to keep scavengers away, and then did something possibly insane. I followed the wounded wolf's blood trail. With my new supernose, tracking was absurdly easy. The blood scent was practically a neon highway. I barely took a wrong step the entire way. Tracking, 5 out of 10, over the slope Lin had warned me about. Through a rocky maze, up a low ridge, and then I stopped. I crawled onto a flat rock, held my breath, and peeked over the edge. Below me was a cliff face with 3 dark cave openings at the base. The biggest entrance was surrounded by wolf tracks, so dense the ground looked like it had been plowed. A pile of bones sat nearby, some old and yellow, some fresh with meat still hanging off them. Outside another cave, a pregnant she-wolf was sunbathing. And inside the caves, in the darkness, I could see them. Pairs of green eyes, glowing, shifting, watching. I counted the adults visible outside. 7. 8. Added the eyes in the dark. 10 more. At minimum. I tracked myself straight to the wolf den. Nearly 20 wolves. In one place. Looking at me. Well, not at me. Not yet. And I very much intended to keep it that way. I lowered myself off that rock so slowly that glaciers would have called me impatient. Backed away 50 steps before I dared stand up straight. Then I turned around and walked away at what I would describe as a very purposeful and dignified retreat, and what an observer might call speed walking away from certain death. We'll be back. Oh yes. Once I've got better gear, more stats, and ideally some kind of plan that doesn't involve me versus 20 wolves with a machete and good vibes. But I now knew exactly where they lived, and they had no idea I was coming. I flew through the forest like I weighed nothing. Strength 11, agility 10, running through dense woods felt like jogging through a park. Trees, rocks, bushes, all of it just flowed around me. Made it back to where I'd stashed the wolf and antelope kills. Everything still there. No scavengers. The snake powder ring had done its job. I bled the carcasses, gutted them clean, lashed together a makeshift drag sled from branches and rope, loaded up 3 wolves and 1 antelope, and hauled the whole pile back to the village like Santa Claus returning from the world's most violent gift shopping trip. By the time I reached the village gates, people had already spotted me. By the time I reached my front door, half the village was stacked behind me like a parade. Then they saw the wolves. Women shrieked. Old ladies stumbled backward. Children scattered. 3 massive gray wolves sprawled across my drag sled, fangs still bared in death, looking exactly as terrifying as you'd expect 3 dead apex predators to look. Mom came rushing out with Dad and Qingtang. All three froze like someone had hit pause on reality. Xiaopin peeked out from behind the door frame with just one eyeball visible, looking absolutely petrified. Second son, you killed all 3 of these. Mom's voice was somewhere between awe and cardiac arrest. I sighed dramatically. Ran into 5, actually. 2 got away. Real shame. Dad crouched down with trembling hands, examined the arrow wounds, and his voice cracked. 1 shot, 1 kill. Every single one. The crowd behind me erupted. Good heavens. He fought 5 wolves and an antelope. How much is all this worth? Old Hua, your family is about to be rich. I always said that boy had potential. This from a man who had called me a wastrel literally 2 days ago. Dad's face flickered between pride and worry. He helped me drag everything inside and immediately slammed the gate shut behind us. In the main room, he grabbed my arm. This area doesn't get wolf packs. Did you go into the deep mountain? The wolves chased the antelope out to the outer ridge. But I paused. I needed to show them something. I walked to the kitchen hearth, picked up the iron fire poker, a solid rod as thick as 2 fingers, gripped both ends, and bent it into a ring. Like bending a wet noodle. 0 effort. For people stared at me like I'd just sprouted wings. This is what I meant about the mountain god's body-strengthening method. I'm way past normal human levels now. He also taught me how to sense danger. I can feel threats coming before they arrive. Dad's response? He threw a punch at my face. I caught it casually with one hand, barely moving. Looked at him confused. He actually smiled. Good reflexes. Real strength. You can handle yourself. Then he nodded like he'd just run a diagnostic, and the results came back positive. Mom glared at him. What are you doing? Don't scare the boy. So please, I said, trust me. I know my limits. I'm not going to walk into something I can't walk out of. With 3 dead wolves as evidence and an iron rod pretzel as a demonstration, the family was now fully on board with the mountain god story. 100% buy-in. Mom was already planning a pilgrimage to the mountain god temple for premium incense burning. Xiaopin was bouncing around clapping. My big brother knows the mountain god. Mom clamped a hand over her mouth faster than I've ever seen a human move. Nobody says anything about this outside this house. Not one word. If someone thinks my son is possessed by a demon, I will yindi every person in this room. Everyone nodded very seriously and very quickly. Qingtang took Xiaopin's hand and led her to the back room for what I assumed was an intensive seminar on keeping your mouth shut. Once the little ears were gone, Dad turned back to me. You were about to say something else. Did you go deeper? I told him everything. The blood trail, the tracking, the wolf den, 3 caves, nearly 20 wolves, bones everywhere. Dad's face went through about 6 different colors before settling on. Extremely concerned gray. Wolves hold grudges. I figured 2 wounded strays might come looking for revenge. That's manageable. But a pack of 20? Son, we need to prepare for them coming down the mountain into the village. That's why I want to hit them first, I said. Wipe out the den before they organize, not alone. Dad shook his head instantly. A pack that size has an alpha. Your bow can't handle that. We need he who and the other experienced hunters. Set traps. Coordinate. Do it right. I did the math. My stats plus he who's military-grade archery plus proper traps and planning? That was a real operation. And he who had already proven he was honest and fair. Good partner material. All right. I'll go to Rocky Fort and talk to them. Dad pushed my shoulder back down onto the stool. I'm going. He who and I go way back. You stay home. Mom protested. At least eat dinner first. Can't wait. He threw on a jacket. I'll borrow a donkey from the village chief. Quick trip. He limped out the gate before anyone could argue further. I watched him go. That bad leg dragging behind him. His back slightly hunched, moving as fast as his broken body would allow to protect a son who was honestly 10 times stronger than him now. Something heavy settled in my chest. Mom patted my hand. Let him do this. Your father may have a bad leg, but he's not helpless. If you took this from him, that would hurt him. I smiled. Okay, I'll go deal with the animals. We'll eat when he gets back. Mom headed to the vegetable garden. Qingtang started rendering boar fat in the kitchen. I grabbed the skinning knife. On my way past the woodshed, I spotted a large wooden tub by the door. Inside, the deer tendons were soaking in water, cleaned and ready for curing. Against the wall leaned a row of freshly carved arrow shafts. Dad had been whittling them in every spare moment over the last 2 days. That man could barely walk, and he was still spending his free time making arrows for me. I stared at those shafts for a long moment before getting back to work. Wolf pelts were too valuable to risk with my amateur hands. So I started with the badger, easiest practice target. Nicked the skin at the arrow hole, then carefully peeled. It came off smooth as pulling a sock. Not bad for a first-timer. Then the antelope. Went slower, gentler, more precise. When the perfect, undamaged hide was spread flat on the ground in front of me, I felt a surge of pride that no stat boost could match. Natural talent at skinning, apparently. Too bad the system only tracked combat skills. Would have been nice to see skinning. Beginner, 1/10, pop up. But no. The universe was perfectly happy to quantify how well I could kill things. But my excellent fur removal technique? Completely unrecognized. Story of every craftsman's life, honestly. Rocky Fort was only about 7 miles away. With a donkey, Dad should have been back in under an hour. But when full darkness came and went with no sign of him, I started getting antsy. Mom wasn't worried at all. They're probably coming here. I should make more food. She was right. Around 10 p.m., the gate swung open and in walked Dad, followed by He-Hoo and He-Lin, all three of them wrapped in night chill like they'd been riding through a freezer. Dad clapped my shoulder. Your uncle, he thinks the wolves might come down tonight. He came back to stand guard. I clasped my fists and bowed to He-Hoo. Uncle He, I was rude to you last time. My apologies. He waved it off like swatting a fly. Being cautious in the wild is smart, not rude. He-Lin was sizing me up with a grin. People told me old Hua's second son was a useless gambling bum. Guess you can't believe everything you hear. Understatement of the century, buddy. Mom's voice echoed from inside. Stop standing around in the cold and get in here. The two hunters dropped their gear by the wall and sat down to a spread that Mom had somehow conjured from thin air: stir-fried rabbit, organ stew, pheasant mushroom soup, 2 vegetable plates, a mountain of rough rice, and a jug of rice wine. She even poured me half a bowl of wine before disappearing to eat separately with the women in the back room. Old-fashioned rules. When men talk business, women eat elsewhere. Qingtang didn't even show her face. He-Lin stuffed a piece of rabbit in his mouth and immediately started moaning. Auntie's cooking is incredible. Way better than my wife's. Bold words from a married man. But the rabbit was fantastic. Dad took a sip of wine and got down to business. My boy's new to hunting and has more guts than sense. If you run into him on the mountain, please keep an eye out. He-Hoo sighed. Happy to. But honestly, it's getting rough out there for everyone. Taxes go up every year. The outer forest is hunted clean, and the deep mountain is getting more dangerous. If us hunters don't stick together, none of us are going to make it. Dad sighed back. The world's not in a good place. I didn't have much personal experience with this. Pingyang County was relatively peaceful, and the old me had been so sheltered that world problems meant the gambling den raised its minimum bet. I knew harvests had been bad and taxes were brutal, but the bigger picture was fuzzy. He-Hoo continued. Normally wolves wouldn't come anywhere near the outer ridge, plenty of food deeper in. But the last few months, they've been pushed closer and closer. Something in the deep mountain is squeezing them out. I've wanted to deal with this pack for a while, but the only other decent hunter around here is Sun Fu, and that coward refuses to help. Sun Fu, the guy who lent me his bow. Apparently brave enough to hunt alone, too chicken to fight wolves as a team. Priorities. Dad nodded grimly. If bigger predators are pushing the wolves out, and the wolves are right on our doorstep. Elm Tree Village is first in line when things go bad. I sat quietly, drinking and eating, absorbing everything. This was important intel. He-Lin bumped my elbow and leaned over conspiratorially. Your family's wine is kinda weak, no offense. Next time I'll take you to the county for real drinks. There's this place called Jufing Tower. Their roast chicken is legendary. I heard the guys from Jinhua Martial Hall order 2 chickens from there every single day. Jinhua Martial Hall. Martial arts. I filed that name away instantly. Martial arts existed in this world. Real martial arts. People talked about wall running, stone splitting, and all sorts of mystical nonsense. How much was real and how much was tall tales? No idea. Pingyang County was too poor and remote for anyone to afford training. Martial halls were places where even the county magistrate showed up with his hat in his hands. Regular people crossed to the other side of the street when walking past one. I'd been so obsessed with hunting and debt-paying that I'd completely forgotten this was a world with actual martial arts. Something to investigate once the 20 tails were handled. The adults moved on to planning the wolf den raid. Nobody drank more than one bowl. Everyone was too nervous about a midnight wolf attack to get buzzed. Dad had already warned the village chief on his way to return the donkey. Told every household to lock doors and windows tonight. He kept the numbers vague though, said 2 escaped wolves instead of 20 wolf megaden. Smart. No need to start a panic. Then he who reached behind him and pulled out a bow. This is a one-stone military-grade composite bow from my border army days. I was saving it for Lin, but the kid can't even draw it. Try it. I took it reverently. This thing was a weapon. Longer than my borrowed bow, jet black limbs, thick and heavy, curved like it was angry at the world. Pure military hardware. I set my core, channeled every ounce of strength, and drew it to a perfect full moon. He whose jaw dropped. Lin's mouth fell open so wide you could have parked a cart in there. Long silence. Brother, Lin finally managed, giving me a thumbs up. You are literally superhuman. Dad was stroking his beard with the smuggest expression I'd ever seen on his face. Peak dad pride. Maximum dad glow. He who shook his head in admiration. Kid, you're wasted as a hunter. You should be in the army. Take the bow. It's yours to borrow. A military composite bow, worth at least 2 taels of silver on the open market. And he just handed it to me. Dad was building me one from deer sinew, but that would take 2 weeks minimum. This solved the problem right now. I accepted it with both hands and about 14 different thank yous. Mentally, I was already calculating how much extra loot to give these 2 during the wolf raid. People this generous deserved premium treatment. We set up the He family in the woodshed with a thick layer of straw and 2 spare quilts. Back in the main room, Mom and Qingtang came out to clear the dishes. I remembered the deer. Dad, did the venison sell? He nodded. Lucky timing. Magistrate Zhao in the county was throwing a birthday banquet. Bought the whole lot. Haggled us down, though. 2 taels and 500 coins total. Not bad. Regular folks couldn't afford deer meat. Restaurants wouldn't take that much at once, and selling piece by piece would take forever. Bulk sale to a rich guy's party was the right call. Dad and I sat talking for a while longer. He taught me how to read wind direction, identify animal trails, and move through deep forest without leaving tracks. I memorized every word. Eventually, the hour got too late even for us, and we turned in. I lay on my bed fully clothed, sleeping with one eye open, ears on maximum sensitivity all night. The wolves never came. Up before dawn, knife-sharpening sounds already coming from the yard. He who and Lin were crouched by the whetstone, grinding their hunting blades like they had a personal grudge against dullness. Dad was under the eaves, braiding rope. I did a full gear check. Strapped on both bows, the one-stone military beast and the mulberry backup. Packed nearly 50 arrows until the quiver looked pregnant. Dad handed me a new machete, razor-sharp, gleaming, clearly not our old chipped one. I didn't ask where he got it. Some dad magic is better left unexplained. We loaded everything onto a borrowed cart, sharpened bamboo stakes, rope, shovels, water, supplies. I grabbed the handles, glanced at Dad's worried face, grinned. Hey, you've got work to do too. Those wolf pelts in the yard won't skin themselves, and the meat's going bad. Don't be reckless, stone face. I'll come back in one piece. Promise. I turned to leave and caught a flash of movement by the kitchen door. Qingtang was leaning against the frame, half-hidden, watching me go. Her eyes had this look in them. Worry she was trying not to show and failing completely. I checked her panel. Affection, 15. Positive, 15. From -30 to positive 15 in less than a week. We had officially crossed into, actually likes you, territory. Every bruise, every late-night return, every dead boar dragged through the village gate. She'd been watching all of it. I flashed her my best smile, waved, and walked away without looking back. Cool guys don't look back. That's a rule. The sky looked angry. Low gray clouds pressing down like a ceiling made of lead. He who squinted upward. Rain's coming. Let's move fast. We hauled that cart up mountain roads so bumpy the bamboo stakes were clacking together like a percussion section. 30 minutes in, Lin took over pulling while he who and I pushed from behind. The sky got darker. The air went cold and sticky. Thunder rumbled in the distance like the mountain was clearing its throat. Then the rain came. Not gentle rain. Not, oh, a drizzle rain. Full apocalyptic sheets of water hammering down like the sky had burst open. Visibility went to about 10 feet. Everything was white noise and cold water. Move. Find cover, he who bellowed. We wrestled the cart through mud that was trying to eat the wheels. He-Lin shoving from behind with his face completely obscured by rain-sweat mixture, until we found a big rock with a hollow underneath just big enough to cram 3 grown men and a cart into. We squatted there gasping like drowned dogs. I passed around the water pouch, still slightly warm, and split my flatbread and jerky 3 ways. We chewed in soggy silence and caught our breath. Finally, the rain eased up. We left the cart hidden under the rock, grabbed just the weapons and trap supplies, and charged up the mountain. Post-rain mountain slopes are basically nature's slip and slide. With 10 agility, I was scrambling up like a mountain goat, grabbing branches, launching off rocks, barely slowing down. He-Lin was behind me, sliding backward every 3rd step, cursing in a continuous stream of profanity that would have impressed a sailor. Over one ridge, across a rock field, up to the low slope overlooking the wolf den. We dropped flat and peered through the wet bushes. My jaw hit the dirt. The wolves were wrecked. Half of them were lying around the cave entrances looking like they'd just lost a bar fight with a freight train. Some were curled in mud puddles. Others were slumped against the cliff wall. Wounds everywhere, fresh ones, old ones, blood mixing with rainwater. Ears drooping, eyes dull. Not a single one was standing guard. "Uncle, what happened to them?" He-Lin whispered. He who studied the scene for a long time. "They fought something. Something big." I sniffed the air. My boosted senses picked up blood and mud and exhaustion. And something in my chest caught fire. "This is a gift from heaven. Hit them while they're down." We slid back and got to work on the west side. A flat stretch of brush, perfect for traps. Dig pits. Line the bottom with sharpened bamboo stakes. String trip ropes. Cover everything with branches, leaves, and a thin layer of mud. Skill acquired. Hunting traps. Beginner, 0 out of 10. New skill. My shovel swung even faster. The rain-softened soil was a dream to dig. Easy, quiet, and the water had washed our scent completely clean. The wolves had 0 clue we were up here redesigning their front yard into a kill zone. 3 pits, bristling with bamboo spears at the bottom, covered and camouflaged to perfection. He who wiped mud off his face and checked the wind. He-Lin, east side. Start fires, drive them west. Hyuji, you're with me on the high ground. On it. He-Lin grabbed the dry firewood, tung oil, and fire starter from the oilcloth bundle, and crept around toward the east side of the den. He who and I climbed the western slope, each finding a boulder for cover. Bows drawn, arrows ready. Minutes passed. Then, thin wisps of smoke rose from the eastern tree line. He-Lin started screaming at the top of his lungs, banging things together, throwing oil-soaked burning branches toward the caves. Smoke rolled directly into the den openings. Heads started popping out, noses twitching. Wolves pacing back and forth at the entrances, agitated, confused. The smoke thickened. He-Lin's noise intensified. One wolf broke, then another. Then they started pouring out of all 3 caves. He-Lin was already shooting. Fire arrows, tips wrapped in oil-soaked cloth, flaming streaks arcing through the gray air. Every arrow pushed them further from the east exit. No going back that way. The wolves panicked. 13 of them flooded westward, straight toward us. I counted fast. 13 total. Most of them injured. My eyes locked onto the leader of the pack, military bow. Full draw. Release. The arrow crossed 80 steps in an eye blink and punched through a wolf's skull. I followed up with a second shot before it hit the ground. Clean kill. 80 steps. One-shot kill. This bow was an absurd upgrade. No time to check system notifications. Next arrow. Next target. He who opened fire from his position waited until they were closer, then put an arrow clean through a wolf's neck from the side. Old man still had it. Different style from mine, shorter range, but surgical precision. The wolf pack fell apart. No coordination. No strategy. Some tried to turn back toward the caves. Some ran south. Some kept charging west into our firing line. Because there was no wolf king. No alpha. No commander. We'd all been worried about a pack leader, and there wasn't one. Without leadership, they were just 13 scared, wounded animals running in every direction. In every direction was a death trap. North, solid cliff wall. Dead end. East, Heelin's wall of fire and arrows. Sealed shut. West, me and he who raining death from the high ground. No cover. South, trip wires, snare ropes, and 3 pits full of bamboo spears. Several wolves bolted south. Hit the trip lines. Couldn't stop. Fell screaming into the pits. Bamboo stakes punched through their bodies from below. The sounds they made would haunt a normal person's nightmares for weeks. I was too busy reloading to be haunted. The survivors were zigzagging between traps and blind panic, howling so loud the whole valley echoed. I was moving forward now, shooting and advancing, picking off anything still breathing. Every kill was a tribute points, and I was not leaving a single point on the table. Then, from somewhere deep in the forest behind the den, a howl. Not like the others. This one was long, piercing, furious. It cut through the mountain air like a blade and vibrated in my bones. Pure, concentrated rage compressed into sound. Every alarm system in my body went to maximum. From up on the slope, he whose voice thundered across the battlefield. Watch out. The Wolf King is here. It appeared on the ridge above the den like a nightmare stepping out of a painting. Silver-gray fur with a cold metallic sheen. A thick mane around its neck, puffed out like a lion's collar. And the size. This thing was twice as big as any wolf I'd seen. Twice. As in, the wolves I'd been killing all morning were basically puppies compared to their king. The smell hit me like a wall. Raw, thick, predatory stink so intense it was practically solid. I scrambled up a tree and ripped open my stat panel. Strength, 11. Constitution, 10. Agility, 10. Free points, 21. 21 free points. The massacre down below had been an absolute jackpot. I'd also picked up 2 new white talents during the chaos. Scent enhancement, better smell, wider range, and a duplicate of alertness. A duplicate. Do you know what that means? I slammed points everywhere. 2 into strength, 1 constitution, 1 agility, and then mashed the merge button on the twin alertness talents. White light flashed and turned green. Alertness upgraded. White-green tier. I caught one glimpse of that green glow before my brain was obliterated by the most intense danger warning I'd ever felt. The Wolf King leaped off the ridge, a 7 or 8 meter drop, and landed silently on all fours like it weighed nothing. No stumble, no sound, just arrived. That wasn't normal wolf behavior. That was video game boss behavior. Its eyes swept the battlefield with an intelligence that made my skin crawl. It looked at Heelin surrounded by fire. Looked at he who further back, then locked onto me. Of course it picked me. Oh, come on, it charged. I have never seen anything move that fast on 4 legs. It was a gray blur cutting through the rain-soaked ground like the mud wasn't even there, zigzagging left-right-left with 0 pattern, 0 predictability, like someone was controlling it with a joystick. I drew and fired. The arrow grazed its spine and ripped out a tuft of silver fur. A graze. From a one-stone military bow at close range. This thing's hide was basically armor. 40 steps. 30. 20. Getting closer at terrifying speed. I bit my tongue hard enough to taste blood, forced myself into that flow state, tracked the blur, waited for the exact right moment. Released. Direct hit. Center mass. And the arrow barely went in. Punctured the skin, broke through a layer of muscle, and stopped. The head was just dangling from its shoulder like a decoration. This wolf was made of what? Concrete? Before I could process the unfairness of wolf anatomy, it reached my tree and slapped the trunk with its front paw. I saw a faint red glow on that paw. The tree shook like it had been hit by a battering ram. The trunk cracked. This single paw strike had the same force as that 300-pound boar's full-speed charge. What? The actual hell. This thing had magic paws. It reared back for another strike. I launched myself sideways, caught a branch on the neighboring tree mid-air. Thank you. 11 agility. Swung up, and was already knocking another arrow before my feet were stable. The Wolf King turned, bared a mouth full of fangs that could bite through a watermelon like a grape, and growled. I shot it in the eye. It tilted its head at the last microsecond. The arrow buried deep in its neck instead. Blood sprayed across its silver mane. It shook its head once. The arrow ripped free and went flying, trailing blood like a comet tail. Then it jumped onto a shorter tree, used its claws to grip the trunk, and launched itself toward a higher branch. It was climbing, using the trees as stepping stones, coming straight for me like a furry silver missile with murder on its mind. Arrows weren't going to cut it. I yanked the machete from my belt. Fine. We're doing this hand-to-hand. Plot a blade. Man versus superwolf on a tree branch in the rain. Exactly how I planned to spend my Tuesday morning. He-Lin and he who were already moving to support. He-Lin firing arrows to distract. He who dealing with 2 wounded wolves still alive on the ground. The Wolf King ignored He-Lin's arrows like mosquito bites and lunged at me. Aim for the belly, he who roared from somewhere behind. 2 arrows from the He family whistled in simultaneously. I twisted sideways, barely dodging the Wolf King's claws, and grabbed its mane with my left hand. My right hand brought the machete down on its skull with everything I had. Clang. The impact vibrated up my entire arm like I'd hit an anvil. This wolf's skull was reinforced. Then it whipped its body, and I was airborne. The world spun. Trees, sky, mud, all rotating. I caught a branch mid-flight, bled off some momentum, and hit the ground in a controlled tumble instead of a lethal splatter. The Wolf King crashed down too, both He family arrows buried in its belly and ribs. It howled in agony, rolled in the mud, and somehow staggered back to its feet. Pain made it angr. It snapped its head toward He-Lin and he who was already dragging He-Lin backward. He-Lin was holding up a jug of tung oil with a lit fire starter hovering at the mouth. Universal wolf language 4, come closer and I'll barbecue you. The Wolf King immediately pivoted back to me. Smartest target, most dangerous, had to be eliminated first. It learned from its mistakes this time. Instead of a flying tackle, it went low, straight for my legs. I jumped, almost cleared it. Almost. Its jaws clamped on my pant leg and ripped me off my feet. I hit the ground flat on my back. Half my trouser leg came away in its mouth like wrapping paper. It was on top of me instantly. Massive paw raised, claws out, swinging down at my chest. Time slowed down. I shoved the bow up with both hands and blocked the strike with the limb. The impact drove through my arms like a lightning bolt. My chest felt like someone parked a cart on it. But I held. Then its mouth opened. Wide. Wider. Coming straight for my head. The inside of its throat was a wet red tunnel of death. Its breath smelled like rotting meat and pure evil. Those jaws could crush a human skull like an egg. I had about 1/5 of a second. My right hand drove the machete straight into its open mouth. My left hand ripped the bow free from its bite. And in the split second the wolf reflexively closed its jaws, I jammed the bow limb between its teeth like a horse bit and pushed down. Squelch. The blade punched through the back of its throat. Hot wolf blood exploded across my face. Eyes, mouth, nose, everything. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Didn't matter. I pulled the machete halfway out and rammed it back in. The weight on top of me went slack. I shoved the Wolf King off my chest with a roar, rolled sideways, and scrambled to my feet, wiping blood out of my eyes with my sleeve. The Wolf King was on the ground, machete handle sticking out of its mouth. One side of its throat was bulging with a fist-sized lump where the blade tip was pressing from the inside. Its blood-filled eyes stared at nothing, legs twitching against the mud, trying to stand, unable. The borrowed military bow was lying nearby, limbs chewed and twisted beyond recognition. He whose beautiful weapon, destroyed. I was going to owe him so many wolf pelts. He-Lin ran up with the tung oil, ready to set the Wolf King on fire. He who grabbed his arm. The pelt. Don't burn the pelt. Shoot its eyes. I spat a mouthful of blood and wolf spit onto the ground. Something savage had ignited inside my chest. Something raw and primal that had nothing to do with stat points or system bonuses. Uncle He, give me your knife. He who tossed me his hunting blade. I caught it, spun it in my hand, and charged straight at the dying Wolf King. It wasn't done yet. As I closed in, its right paw swung at me one last time, glowing red, burning with whatever demonic energy this monster used. My upgraded alertness screamed a full second before the strike came, and I sidestepped it like dodging a slow punch. I raised the hunting knife over the Wolf King's remaining good eye, and drove it home. The hunting knife went through the Wolf King's eye like a hot needle through butter. Warm fluid sprayed everywhere. My hand, my chest, probably my future nightmares. Its legs kicked a few times. Then nothing. Then two glowing orbs rose from the body. One green, one white. and flew straight into my chest. Half-step Demon Wolf King killed. 20 free attribute points. Talent acquired. Treasure sense, green. Chance to detect rare natural treasures within a 5-mile radius. Talent acquired. Wolf gaze, white. Enhanced field of vision, night vision, and dynamic tracking. I stood frozen for 3 full seconds. 20 points. A green tier talent. And not just any green, treasure sense. A built-in radar for valuable resources anywhere within 5 miles. This wolf was the best thing that ever tried to kill me. But then my brain caught up to the system notification and hit a wall. Half-step. Demon. I stared at the massive silver corpse at my feet. The glowing red paw. The impossible speed. The skull that bounced a machete. The jump from a 30-foot cliff. The arrow-resistant hide. This thing was turning into a demon. An actual, real, supernatural demon wolf. I had thought I was in a gritty historical martial arts world. Realistic combat. Human enemies. Maybe some wild animals. Nope. Setting change. World has actual monsters. All those stories Mom kept telling me about mountain spirits and talking tigers, the ones I filed under, cute superstitions. Apparently real. All of them. Possibly. My entire worldview did a backflip, landed wrong, and broke its ankle. I shook it off. Existential crisis later. Attribute points now. 3 wolves were still alive in the trap pits. I hopped down and finished them off one by one. 4 points, 4 points, 3 points. Combined with the Wolf King's 20 and my leftover stash, I was sitting on 28 free points. 2 into strength, 3 into constitution. Stats, jump 2, strength 15, constitution 14, agility 11. Warmth flooded through me like someone had turned on an internal furnace. The exhaustion from the Wolf King fight melted away. The burning pain in my chest faded to a dull ache. I felt like I could fight another Wolf King. Maybe not wanted to, but could. Lin and he who were already skinning wolves, so I slipped away toward the den alone. The cave stank like death's bathroom. 0 light. Wolf gaze activated. The pitch-black cave lit up in my vision like someone had flipped a switch. Full daylight clarity in complete darkness. Incredible talent. At the very back of the deepest cave, a mother wolf lay curled on a pile of dried grass. Dead. Stiff. A massive claw wound across her back. Something with claws way bigger than a wolf had torn her open. Her belly was flat and loose. She'd given birth recently. My treasure sense was pointing right here. I gently lifted her body. Underneath, 5 wolf pups huddled together. Tiny. Fuzzy. Eyes still sealed shut. For were cold. Dead. One was alive. Trembling in my palm like a fuzzy silver heartbeat. This was the treasure. I held it up to examine it. Silver gray fur. Same rare color as the Wolf King. And on its forehead, right in the center, a strange blue-green pattern. Not a birthmark. The fur and the skin underneath both carried this unearthly color, like it had been painted there by something not human. This pup was special. System confirmed, treasure sense verified, born from a Demon Wolf King special. I tucked it inside my shirt against my chest and headed out. On the way, I gathered all the scattered wolf bodies and stacked them neatly by the Wolf King. Lin had dragged the cart up, and the 3 of us started loading. Lin spotted the pup peeking from my collar. You're keeping that? Wolves can't be tamed, brother. Get a hunting dog instead. My family had 2 good ones, but they both died of disease. Shame. I'll give it a shot, I said casually, as if the glowing forehead rune on this pup was a perfectly normal feature of regular baby wolves. 16 wolves total, including the king, piled on the cart like the world's worst for delivery. Even without calculating, I knew this haul would cover my 20-tailed debt with plenty left over. The nightmare that had been hanging over my family for days was basically solved. Lin patted the wolf mountain and sighed. Still, 3 got away. You 2 take the cart back, I said. I'll track the stragglers. They're wounded, can't have gone far. Besides, the Wolf King was guarding something out there instead of leading his pack. I want to know what. He who had watched me go toe-to-toe with a half-demon wolf and survive. He knew what I was capable of. He glanced at the tracks, thought for a moment, and nodded. Go. But don't push too deep. Quick trip, I grabbed the backup birch bough, collected scattered arrows, took he whose hunting knife, and started tracking. The escaped wolves' prints circled up to the ridge above the den and merged with the Wolf King's incoming trail, all heading north. I followed for 2 or 3 miles before the tracks vanished in a pine forest. Found a flattened grass nest nearby with silver-gray wolf fur, the Wolf King's resting spot. Adjusted direction westward and kept searching. No more wolf tracks. But I did stumble across a red fox lapping rainwater from a rock puddle. I was reaching for an arrow when, that feeling, the invisible compass in my brain. Treasure sense was pulling me again. Not as strong as the wolf pup signal, but definitely there. Faint, intermittent, like a radio station just barely in range. The fox bolted. I didn't care. Bigger prizes ahead. I followed the pull for 4 or 5 miles, deeper into the wilderness, the signal getting stronger with every step. Finally, I stopped at the edge of a dense old-growth forest. Whatever it was less than 100 steps ahead. I found it under the biggest pine tree I'd ever seen. Trunk so massive 3 men couldn't link arms around it. Roots bursting from the earth in gnarled tangles. Thick carpet of dead leaves giving off that deep forest rot smell. But underneath the rot, a clean, sharp scent. Medicinal. Unmistakable. I crouched and scanned the ground. Wolf fur everywhere, old and new layers. The Wolf King had been here, guarding this spot. That's why it wasn't with the pack when we attacked. It had been playing security guard for whatever was growing under this tree. I brushed away the leaves. A plant. Blood red from root to leaf tip. Dark crimson, leaves that looked like frozen drops of blood. Half the root was still buried. The other half had been clawed out of the soil. The root was shaped like a ginseng root, palm-sized, completely scarlet, and the whole thing had this translucent quality, like it was carved from a single piece of blood-red jade. It practically glowed. This was treasure. Capital T, change your life, once-in-a-lifetime treasure. But should I dig it up? What if it wasn't mature yet? What if the Wolf King had been waiting for it to ripen? I got my face down to ground level and inspected closely. The exposed root fibers had clear bite marks, chewed clean off. The Wolf King had been eating it, nibbling the roots like a wolf-shaped health food enthusiast, probably trying to complete its demon transformation. I thought about it for exactly 4 seconds. Dig. Absolutely dig. No question. If I left this thing here and went home, some random forest animal would find it and eat it before I got back. A deer, a squirrel, a particularly ambitious worm. Anything could take it. I'd lose the find and the opportunity. The Wolf King died guarding this plant. The least I could do was take it home and put it to good use. Sorry, Your Majesty. Finders keepers. I dug around that blood-red plant like a surgeon performing the most important operation of his career. The roots went deeper than I expected. I had to peel away soil grain by grain, holding my breath the entire time, terrified I'd snap a root and ruin the whole thing. Finally got it out. Perfect. Complete. Not a single root hair damaged. I ripped a strip off the bottom of my undershirt, wrapped the plant like it was made of diamond-encrusted glass, and tucked it into a hidden pocket inside my sleeve. If anyone tried to pickpocket me right now, I would commit violence. The wolf pup in my shirt was hungry, little belly trembling against my chest, making tiny whimpering sounds. Time to go home. With the wolves dead and a treasure in my pocket, I felt lighter than I had since arriving in this world. I opened up and ran. Full speed. No holding back. Agility 11. Strength 15. I was a human missile. The Rocky Mountain Trail that had nearly killed me 5 days ago was now a sidewalk. Wind screaming past my ears, branches whipping by, feet barely touching the ground. I was running through dense forest like it was an open field. I caught up with He Hu and He Lin before dark. They'd picked up company. The 3 Lu brothers had been gathering firewood on the mountain, bumped into the wolf-loaded cart, and immediately started pushing like the good neighbors they were. Lu Dazhuang and his brothers looked at me like I was a rock star. He Lin had apparently spent the entire walk home telling them, in excruciating detail, how I'd stabbed a demon wolf king through the mouth while it was sitting on my chest. Their eyes were so wide I could have served soup in them. Even He Hu treated me differently now. Before, I was the kid. Now I was an equal. A fellow hunter who'd earned his spot at the table by shoving a machete down a supernatural wolf's throat. We rolled into Elm Tree Village, and the whole place went berserk. Again, wolves. Look at all those wolves. How many is that? Hua family's boy brought back a whole pack. I was getting used to the celebrity entrance. Pushed the cart through the crowd like it was just another Tuesday. Mom came running out. took one look at the pile of 16 wolf carcasses, saw the massive wolf king sprawled across the top, with its nightmare face still frozen in a snarl, and her legs buckled. Dad caught her before she hit the ground. Sweet heavens above, Mom was clutching her chest like her heart was trying to escape. Xiao Pin was right behind her. I lunged forward and clamped my hand over her eyes before she could see anything. Qing Tang, take her inside. Now. Qing Tang's face was white as paper. She grabbed Xiao Pin's hand and practically dragged her back through the gate. Smart girl. Last thing we needed was the kid having wolf nightmares for the rest of her childhood. Mom recovered enough to do her standard post-hunt inspection, grabbed my arms, checked for wounds, found nothing but torn clothes. Her relief came out as a long exhale that probably lowered the village's air pressure. Mom, these are all money. Enough to pay off the debt with plenty left over. You should be happy. Oh, shut up, she said, but she was already starting to smile. The old village chief hobbled over on his cane, took one look at the wolf pile, and nearly fell over. Good heavens. You cleared out the entire den? I bowed respectfully. The pack was camped less than 5 miles from the village outer boundary. 1 day's travel to our front doors. If we hadn't dealt with them, it was only a matter of time. The old man went pale, realizing how close the danger had been. Thanked us profusely. Dad gently ushered him home before the excitement gave him a medical event. Mom chased the gawking villagers away. Shoo, go home. Stop staring at a pile of bloody wolves. And Lu boys, thank you. Your auntie will send you good meat tomorrow. Gate shut. Mom's public face instantly switched from annoyed village woman to Christmas morning. She beamed at He Hu and He Lin. Dinner's on the stove. Eat first, work later. I pulled her aside and showed her the wolf pup peeking from my collar. Mom, the mountain god told me this one is special. Raise it well, and it'll be incredibly useful. Mrs. Zhang's sheep just had lambs. Could you get some milk? She looked at the tiny wolf and flinched. But the magic words, mountain god said so, overrode all maternal instincts. She cradled the pup like a baby and immediately had a plan. I'll have Qing Tang trade some rabbits for goat milk. You go eat. The 4 of us, me, Dad, He Hu, He Lin, demolished dinner like we hadn't seen food in a week. He Hu pushed away the wine bowl Mom offered. No drinking tonight, sister-in-law. We need to start skinning immediately. Pelts need to get to market by morning. Can't have shaky hands. Professional. Respect. I put down my bowl. Dad, what's the total haul worth? Dad's face was glowing. Well, I sold those first 3 wolf pelts this morning in town. Big one fetched 1 tail 500. 2 smaller ones, 1 tail 200 each. Wolf meat's tough and stinky. Only got 8 coins per pound, but that still came to 1,300 coins. He Lin whistled and pointed at the Wolf King. But that pelt, huge, perfect condition, that rare silver color, that's worth dozens of tails, easy. He Who shot him a look. He Lin, the Wolf King is all cuties. He fought it head on, start to finish. We were support. He Lin shrank. I know, Uncle. I was just being happy for Brother Hor. I shook my head. Uncle I can't agree with that. If you two hadn't drawn fire, shot its belly, and handled the other wolves that tried to jump me during the fight, I couldn't have killed it solo. Let's do 70-30 on the Wolf King, same as the deer. Remaining wolves split evenly. Fair, this was genuine. They'd risked their lives alongside me. And strategically, being generous now meant they'd be eager to team up again later. Nobody wants to partner with a guy who hogs everything. Plus, I had a blood-red treasure plan in my sleeve worth more than every wolf on that cart combined. I could afford to be generous with the pelts. He Who tried to refuse. I held firm. Dad nodded his approval. They accepted. After dinner, everyone got to work, sharpening knives, unloading the cart, prepping for an all-night skinning marathon. I grabbed a quiet moment, pulled Dad into the kitchen, and slowly unwrapped the strip of undershirt from my sleeve. The blood-red ginseng gleamed under the lamplight like a jewel carved from frozen blood. Dad's hand shook. His skinning knife nearly hit the floor. His voice dropped to a tight whisper. Did you tell anyone about this? Not a soul. A wolf that's basically a demon was guarding it. I knew it wasn't ordinary. Dad exhaled slowly, but his voice was still trembling. This is called scarlet jade ginseng. I saw one once, years ago, at the town medicine shop. Someone brought one in, smaller than this, and sold it for, he paused, 100 taels of silver. 100 taels. My arm suddenly felt like it was holding a nuclear bomb. The debt was 20 taels. My entire family's yearly income was maybe 2 taels. And I had 100 taels tucked in my sleeve like a handkerchief. The medicine shop resells them to martial arts schools, Dad continued. Warriors pay premium prices for this kind of thing. The markup is another 10 taels on top, 110 taels, for one plant. That a wolf found for me. Dad, what's the reputation of Jinhua Martial Hall in town? He thought about it. Haven't heard anything bad. The martial artists there keep to themselves mostly. Don't bother common folk. Good. I'm going there tomorrow to sell it directly. The plan assembled itself in my head like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Sell the ginseng to the martial hall. Cut out the middleman. Get maximum price. Use the money to pay off the debt, buy supplies, and, here's the real prize. Pay the entrance fee to learn martial arts. I'd been meaning to investigate the whole martial arts exist in this world thing anyway. Now I had a 100-tael key to the front door. Time to level up in more ways than one. I slept until the sun was practically overhead. When I finally dragged myself outside, I was the last one up by an embarrassing margin. Dad and he who were already in the yard scraping wolf pelts. Lin was rolling and bundling finished skins with military precision. And Xiao Pin, the same child who'd hidden behind a door in terror last night, was sitting on a wood-chopping stump with her chin in her hands, watching the wolf skin processing like it was the most fascinating show in the world. Kids are wild. We loaded up the borrowed cart. Wolf meat under oilcloth, bundled pelts stacked on top. Dad studied the Wolf King's pelt and shook his head. Too eye-catching. Bury it in the middle and throw a rough cloth over everything. Last thing we need is street thugs getting ideas. Lin, mouth full of flatbread. What about the Wolf King meat? He who gave him a look. That thing was half demon. Eating it could curse you. And we're definitely not selling cursed meat to people. I'll ask around in town, I said. If nobody wants it, we burn it. Xiao Pin came running out and grabbed Dad's pant leg. I want to go to the city too. Mom scooped her up like a football. Absolutely not. There are kidnappers out there. Next time, Mommy will take you. I crouched down and ruffled her hair. Be good. I'll bring you back candied fruit on a stick. Her nose was still running from the almost crying, but she nodded fiercely. Deal accepted. 4 of us hit the road. Me pulling, Dad steadying the side. Family pushing from behind. An hour plus of walking later, Pingyang County appeared on the horizon. Gray walls, not particularly tall, rooftops poking up behind them. 2 guards at the gate couldn't have cared less about us. Market day meant free entry. We rolled the cart through the side gate without a second glance. The main street was alive. Stone-paved roads, shop banners waving, vendors hollering from every direction. The air smelled like steamed buns, sugar cakes, and roasted chestnuts. After 5 days of nothing but forest, mud, and wolf blood, civilization hit my senses like a freight train. He who led us to a fur shop, 8 Directions leather goods, a modest storefront with pelts hanging from every inch of the awning. The owner was a chubby guy in a melonskin cap who knew all 3 of them by name. Old Hua, and both he brothers. All 3 at once. Must be something special. He who pulled the cloth off the cart. The shopkeeper's eyes went the size of dinner plates. Good Lord, gentlemen, he recovered fast. Old pro, this guy, and started inspecting pelts one by one, grading them with practiced fingers. This one top grade. This one has a gash from a trap, lower grade. Then he reached the Wolf King pelt at the bottom. His hands started trembling. His breathing got heavy. This is a Wolf King. Look at the size of this thing. This beast was halfway to becoming a spirit creature. He stroked the thick silver mane, examined the hollowed-out head, practically drooled on the fur. Then came the negotiation. 40 taels, he who? Come on, shopkeeper Chiao. You and I both know you won't find another pelt like this in 100 miles. Try again. What followed was 15 minutes of the most intense haggling I'd ever witnessed. Back and forth, like a verbal tennis match where every point was worth silver. Finally, the shopkeeper bit down, winced, and surrendered. 52 taels for the Wolf King pelt. 16 taels for the remaining pelts. Combined, 68 taels for the skins alone. Plus what we'd already earned from the first 3 wolf pelts and meat sales. Plus the boar money. Plus the deer money. The 20-tael gambling debt that had felt like an impossible mountain 5 days ago was now loose change in my pocket. Lin slapped my shoulder, and started promoting me to the shopkeeper like a proud agent. Remember this face? Shopkeeper Chiao. This is old Hua's second son. He's the one who killed the Wolf King hand to hand. You're going to be seeing a lot of him. Dad stroked his beard with maximum smug energy. The shopkeeper bowed to me like I was visiting royalty. Young sir, a man of your caliber is destined for great things. Please bring your business to my humble shop. I smiled, bowed back, said the right things, and we left to go sell the wolf meat at the market. Then I made my move. Haven't been to the city in a while. Mind if I walk around a bit? You guys go ahead. Dad and I exchanged a look. He understood. He slipped me about 400 coins in small silver and said, "Go. Buy something for your mother and sister. No mention of gambling. No warnings. No suspicion. Just trust." I pocketed the silver and split off down a side street, asking every person I passed for directions to Jinhua Martial Hall. Found it in about 15 minutes. The place was intimidating. A massive compound with a blackwood plaque over the entrance. Jinhua Martial Hall, in gold characters that looked like they'd been carved by an angry sword. 2 stone lions flanking the gate, glaring at passers-by like bouncers at an exclusive club. The gates were open. A young guy in a gray jacket was leaning against the doorframe, napping on duty. I approached with a polite fist-clasp bow. "Excuse me, brother. I have something to sell that your hall might be interested in. Could I speak with someone in charge?" He cracked one eye open, scanned me top to bottom, patched clothes, farm boy haircut, dirt under the fingernails, and immediately went full snob mode. "Where'd you crawl in from, country boy? You think you can just waltz into Jinhua Martial Hall?" I kept my cool. "I genuinely have something your hall needs." I started reaching for the hidden pocket in my sleeve. "Are you deaf?" I said, "Liuer. What are you yelling about?" A sharp female voice cut through the air from my right. I turned and saw a young woman rounding the corner, leading a horse by the reins, with a high ponytail swinging behind her. The girl was wearing dark blue combat clothes with a black sash, leather boots, and a silver hairpin holding her ponytail high. Maybe 16 years old. Face like a painting, delicate features, sharp eyebrows, pure warrior energy. She also had a full-length sword strapped to her back, and standing there radiating confidence. She looked like she'd stepped out of a martial arts movie poster. Here's the terrifying part. Even from several steps away, I could feel her. A pressure coming off her body that was comparable to the Wolf King. This teenage girl with a ponytail had the same predatory aura as a half-demon supernatural wolf. What kind of world had I landed in? The door guard's attitude did a complete 180. He practically teleported out of the doorway, bowing so fast his spine nearly snapped. "Miss Liu, you're back." She didn't even look at him. "I asked you a question. Why are you screaming at this man?" He just showed up demanding to see someone in charge, said he had something to sell. I took my shot. "Miss, I have a rare medicinal treasure I'd like to sell to your hall. It's not something I can show out here in the open." She looked me over. I could tell she was assessing posture, build, eyes. Whatever she saw, it passed inspection. I can make that decision. "Follow me." She tossed the horse's reins at the guard. "Next time someone comes to the door, ask what they want before you bark at them. Do it again and you're fired." The guard's face went white. Multiple, "Yes, ma'am," tumbled out. Inside was a different world. Past a decorative screen wall, the front courtyard opened up, 2 or 3 acres of brick-paved training ground, neat buildings on both sides, and a grand main hall straight ahead. "Show me what you've got." I unwrapped the cloth. Her eyes blazed. "Scarlet jade ginseng. You actually brought something real." I heard martial halls buy these. She was already walking toward the back. "Come. My grandfather will set the price." The back courtyard was even bigger than the front. A massive training field dominated the center, lined with stone weights, wooden practice dummies, and iron equipment. 8 young disciples stood in 2 rows, drilling sword techniques, blades flashing, movements sharp and powerful, the air literally humming with each swing. But what stopped me dead was the guy standing alone off to the side. He was facing a 2-finger-thick iron plate propped on a wooden stand. He stepped back, gripped his sword, twisted his hips, and swung. The blade traced a crescent arc through the air, and I swear, I saw a faint red glow along the cutting edge. Clang! The iron plate split clean in 2. The wooden stand underneath shattered into pieces. The guy sheathed his sword, looking annoyed, like he'd done it wrong somehow. I checked the blade as he put it away. Not a scratch, not a nick, not even a mark. He'd cut through solid iron, and his sword was in perfect condition. My brain was doing backflips. Iron. He cut through iron. With a sword. An old man was standing in front of the disciple, mid-50s, white-streaked hair and beard, built like an ox, radiating the kind of energy that said, I could kill everyone in this courtyard before breakfast and still be bored. He glanced at the split iron plate with the enthusiasm of someone checking their mail. Your cut still needs work. Barely qualifies as entry level. Keep practicing. Entry level. Cutting iron plates in half is entry level. The ponytail girl bounced over to the old man and whispered in his ear. His hawk eye swiveled onto me. The moment our gazes met, a pressure crashed down on me that made the Wolf King feel like a house cat. My entire body tensed up involuntarily, every muscle coiling tight, fight or flight screaming at max volume. Young man, have you trained in martial arts? No, sir. His eyebrows shot up. He stepped forward and grabbed my shoulder before I could react. My alertness was screaming to dodge, but it wasn't signaling actual danger. No hostile intent, so I forced myself to stay planted. He squeezed my shoulder, then my arm, running his fingers down the muscle like a doctor doing an exam. Then he let go and stared at me with genuine confusion. Remarkable. No martial training whatsoever, yet your vitality and blood energy far exceed any ordinary person. Yeah, well, when you have a cheat system that lets you dump stat points into your body like quarters into an arcade machine, ordinary stops being relevant pretty quickly. Grandfather, the business. The girl nudged him back on track. He took the scarlet jade ginseng from my hands and studied it carefully. Genuine. Approximately 10 years of growth. However, he frowned. Some of the root fibers are missing. Were they already consumed? I found it in this condition. A Wolf King had been guarding it and gnawing on the roots. The old man's eyebrows relaxed. Ah, that explains it. Let me warn you, young man. This ginseng's medicinal properties are extremely violent. Even consuming just the root fibers without proper preparation can send your blood into a lethal boil. A weak person would die instantly. If someone swallowed the main root directly, even a strong, healthy man would explode. Explode. As in, body goes boom. The ginseng I'd been casually carrying in my sleeve like a sandwich was basically a bomb. So that's why the Wolf King only nibbled the tiny root hairs. It wasn't being patient. It was trying not to detonate itself. Good thing I hadn't gotten any bright ideas about eating it raw. There are minor cosmetic flaws, but the medicinal potency is largely intact. I can offer you 130 taels. 130 taels. Dad had estimated 100. The actual number was 30 more. I didn't haggle. This old man was clearly the real deal. Head of a martial hall, sharp as a blade, no-nonsense demeanor. If he said 130, that was his honest price. Squeezing him for 5 more taels wasn't worth souring the relationship. Deal. But I have one more question. How much does it cost to study martial arts here? The old man stroked his beard. Normally, starting at your age would be a significant handicap against students who've trained since childhood. However, your physical foundation is unusual. It wouldn't hold you back. The fee is 100 taels for a 6-month trial as a registered disciple. During that period, you'll learn basic blade techniques and receive medicinal baths and diet supplements. After 6 months, if your talent is sufficient, you'll be formally accepted as my personal student, and I'll teach you everything. 100 taels. For 6 months. Of beginner training. They called it poor scholars, rich warriors, for a reason. Most well-off city families couldn't afford this. For a farming family, absolute fantasy. But then I remembered that disciple casually bisecting an iron plate and being told it was barely entry level. Whatever they were teaching here, it was the real thing. And I had a body built for combat, but zero technique. I was a sports car with no driver's license. This school was the driving course. I needed to talk to Dad first, though. The old man called for payment. A servant brought out 2 bank notes, one for 100 taels, one for 20, both from 8 Directions Bank, the largest financial institution in the Great Yin Dynasty. Accepted everywhere. As good as gold. Plus 2 silver ingots, 5 taels each. 130 taels. In my hands. A man who 5 days ago was lying in bed with a bump on his head and 0 copper coins to his name, was now holding enough money to buy a house. I tucked everything into my innermost pockets with extreme care, bowed deeply, and turned to leave. The ponytail girl walked me all the way to the front screen wall. By the way, I'm Lu Zhao Zhao. Zhao as in truth revealed. If you find more rare medicines like this, bring them here first, she smiled. Ingenua Marshall Hall would be happy to have you. I smiled back, bowed again, and walked out past the stone lions, past the humiliated door guard who wouldn't even look at me, and into the street. 130 taels of ginseng money. 68 taels of wolf pelt money. Plus all the previous earnings. 5 days ago, I was a dead gambling addict in a ditch. Today I was rich. I told her my name, Huakuji, as in drive away sickness, and was about to leave when I remembered the Wolf King meat situation. Miss Lu, one more question. That Wolf King I killed. Huge, claws glowing red, clearly not a normal animal. Can you eat it? She laughed. Of course. Martial artists eat demon beast meat to strengthen their blood and vitality. Regular people benefit too. It's great for general health. Our hall also buys demon carcasses, so bring them next time. Demon beast. She said it so casually. Like, demon was just another category of meat at the butcher shop, right between pork and chicken. I wanted to ask her approximately 9,000 questions about what exactly demons were and how this world worked, but we'd just met. Pestering a girl I'd known for 15 minutes with an interrogation about supernatural zoology seemed like a bad move. I'd get my answers once I enrolled. I thanked her, bowed to the old man, and left. Walking away from Jinhua Martial Hall, my brain was buzzing. Demons were real. Martial artists could cut through iron. Ginseng could make people explode. This world had layers I hadn't even begun to peel. So, demons exist. What's next, actual gods? Buddhas? Am I going to run into an immortal on the mountain next Tuesday? I was so deep in thought that I almost walked past the Lucky Fortune gambling house without noticing. Almost. 2 beefy thugs flanked the entrance, arms crossed, scanning pedestrians like hungry hawks. One of them recognized me and did a double take. Well, if it isn't Hua number 2. Healed up and ready for a few rounds. I'm here for Boss Ma. I walked straight in without waiting for a response. The gambling den was exactly what you'd expect. Smoky air thick enough to chew, tables packed with desperate men, dice rattling, people cursing. A symphony of bad decisions. I didn't even glance at the tables. Walked straight to the back corner where a shaved-head man in his 30s sat in a fancy chair, rolling 2 iron walnuts in his palm. Boss Ma. Silk jacket, bulging muscles, face like a brick wall that learned to frown. Boss Ma. He looked me up and down with half-closed eyes. Oh, Hua number 2. Almost didn't recognize you. Look like a different person. Here to pay up? I reached into my jacket, pulled out the 20-tael bank note, and placed it on the table. His eyes snapped wide open. He sat up straight, put down the iron walnuts, picked up the note, flipped it over and back, held it up to the light, and finally squeezed out a smile that looked like it hurt his face. Well now, long as the money's here, we've got no problems. He snapped his fingers, and someone brought my debt note. He handed it over. I took it, bowed once, turned to leave. Come back anytime, his voice floated after me. Need another loan? Doors always open. Fair and square, no tricks. Fair and square. From a loan shark who charged 400% interest on a 1-month loan. The audacity of this man could power a city. I didn't look back, didn't answer, just walked out. The moment I stepped outside, a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying lifted off my chest. Like someone had been standing on my ribcage for 5 days and finally stepped off. I could breathe again. The air tasted better. Colors looked brighter. My steps felt lighter. Debt paid. 0 balance. Account closed. The thing that had been threatening to destroy my family was now a crumpled piece of paper in my pocket. I stopped by his family's wine shop and bought a jug of good rice wine. Then grabbed 20 fat pork buns from a street vendor. Hot, steaming, dripping with sauce. Found Dad and the He brothers at the market outside the west gate. The wolf meat was almost sold out. He Lin was crouching on the ground, counting coin strings. The second he saw the buns, he launched off the ground like a spring-loaded catapult, snatched one, and bit into it so hard he burned his entire mouth. Finally, starving to death over here. Brother Hua, you're the best. All spoken through a mouthful of scalding pork. Dad eyed the purchase with that. My son is spending money. Look, but said nothing in front of company. Wise man. 4 of us squatted behind the cart, water in one hand, bun in the other, 3 buns each. I saved the rest for the family at home. Dad and he who went back to selling the last scraps of meat. Lin and I were told to go explore the market. Lin vanished like a rabbit into a magic trick. I wandered alone, past a jewelry stall. Thought of Mom. Thought of Qingtang. Crouched down and started shopping. Picked out a silver bracelet with vine patterns for Mom. One tail, 500 coins. A phoenix head silver hairpin for Qingtang. One tail, 300. Haggled the vendor down 100 coins on the total because even fake rich people should negotiate. Hit the fabric stall next. 2 bolts of rough cloth for daily wear. 2 bolts of floral print for nice clothes. One tail, 700. By the time I finished shopping, the 5-tail silver ingot in my pocket had been reduced to scraps and small change. Didn't care. My family had been wearing clothes so old the fabric had forgotten its original color. Mom's hands were rough from years of hard labor. Qingtang didn't own a single piece of jewelry. That was about to change. Bumped into Lin on the way back. He was carrying a bolt of cloth under one arm and a bunch of food wrapped in oil paper. We looked at each other's haul and grinned like two guys who'd just discovered that having money was actually really fun. Back at the cart, the meat was down to about 100 pounds of unsold scraps. He who shrugged, dropped the price to 6 coins a pound, and still couldn't move it. We'll take it home and make jerky. Dad spotted my mountain of shopping bags and his eye twitched, but he helped me load everything onto the cart without comment. Restraint level, expert. We pulled out of Pingyang County as the sun started dropping. Made it back to Elm Tree Village by evening. The second I opened the gate, Xiaopin came sprinting out like a tiny guided missile. Big brother. Big brother. I whipped out a candied fruit stick. Did you think I'd forget? Her eyes went supernova. She was reaching for it when Mom intercepted like a goalkeeper, snatched the stick, and pulled off exactly 2 fruits. You'll rot your teeth eating the whole thing. 2 candied fruits went into Xiaopin's mouth. Instant bliss. World peace achieved. Lin and he who needed to get home to their families. So we did the money split right away. Dad laid out the coins and silver on the table. Wolf meat total, 6,382 coins. Call it 6 tails 400. Wolf pelts, 16 tails. Grand total for the shared portion, 22 tails 400. 3-way split, rounded up for our guests. 15 tails for the He family. 3 5-tail silver ingots pushed across the table. Then the Wolf King pelt share. 15 tails 600 to the He family. And the Wolf King meat. I told them it was safe and nutritious, per the Marshall Hall girl. But the He brothers absolutely refused to take any. Too spooked by the demon wolf thing, and too proud to take more than they felt they'd earned. Dad tried to add bonus payment for their labor. They refused that too. The bow just needs a little repair, it's fine, and they left. The moment their footsteps faded, I locked the front room door. Mom and Qingtang stared at me with confused expressions. I reached into my jacket, pulled out 2 items, slapped them on the table. Item 1, a banknote from 8 Directions Bank. 100 taels of silver. Item 2, a crumpled debt note. Stamped, paid, 20 taels, 0 balance, account closed. The room went completely silent. Mom saw the 100-tael banknote and made a sound like a cat stepping on a squeaky toy, then slapped both hands over her own mouth so hard I thought she'd knock herself out. Her other hand clamped onto Qingtang's arm like a vice. Qingtang, tell me this is real. Tell me. Qingtang was frozen solid for a good 10 seconds before she managed to whisper. It's real. 100 taels. Mom's eyes went red. She looked at me with so much love and pride it was physically uncomfortable. I could feel the emotional speech building up behind her eyes like water behind a dam, and I was not about to let that dam break. I speed-talked through the entire Scarlet Jade Ginseng story before she could start crying, then grabbed the debt note and waved it like a victory flag. Oh, and this? Picked it up from the gambling house on the way. Paid in full. We're done. The relief that washed through that room was almost visible, like a dark cloud that had been suffocating this family for days just evaporated. Gone. 5 days of terror, erased with 1 bank note and 1 torn-up piece of paper. Mom recovered from her joy just long enough to worry again. But those gambling house people are monsters. They squeeze people dry. Boss Ma really just let us go? I ripped the debt note into confetti. Money paid, debt cleared. What's he going to do? And if he tries anything, I cracked my knuckles. I'll collect interest from him. Honestly, I was still irritated about paying 20 taels on a 5-tael principal. If that bald idiot came knocking again, the conversation would go very differently. Dad tapped the table. Debt settled. Let's count what we actually have. Mom pulled out her secret wooden box from deep inside the cabinet and dumped everything onto the table. Then she produced a piece of rough cloth covered in charcoal scratches, her personal accounting system. Just lines of different lengths that only she could decode. Ancient Chinese spreadsheet technology. She ran her finger along the marks, reading them off like a CFO at a board meeting. Wild boar? 5 tails 100 coins. Antelope meat and skin. 2 tails 200. Badger pelt, 370 coins. She looked up nervously. After subtracting what we spent on odds and ends. 59 tails, 200 coins, and 28 copper. Did I get that right? I gave her a thumbs up. Mom, you're a mathematical genius. Not one coin off. She beamed like she'd just won an award. Then triple counted Dad's pile for good measure, patting her chest. These past few days have been so crazy I was terrified I'd mess up the numbers. I added the remaining 5-tail silver ingot to the pile. This is what's left after I went shopping. Which was most of it. Mom polished the ingot with her handkerchief like it was a newborn baby. My son is so capable. This is enough for a proper life. We should build you a brick house. Buy 10 acres of good, irrigated farmland. And then, Mom. Hold on. I straightened up. This was the big pitch. Dad. Mom. I want to learn martial arts. Silence. The kind of silence where you can hear dust settling. Dad wasn't surprised. He'd probably figured this out the moment I mentioned selling the ginseng to a martial hall. He tapped the table. Did you ask about the cost? 100 taels enrollment fee. 6-month trial period. After that, if I pass, formal discipleship, additional costs to be determined. 100 taels? Mom's voice hit a register that could shatter porcelain. Even Qingtang, who'd been sitting quietly through the entire conversation, sucked in a sharp breath. The room temperature dropped about 10 degrees. The euphoria of being rich for the first time ever was getting mugged by the reality of immediately being unrich. I need martial arts to survive the deep mountain. I pressed on. Real skills, real techniques, real self-defense. Mom tried a different angle, voice small and careful. Sweetheart, can't you just hunt the outer forest? Like your father? Nice and safe? I looked her in the eyes. Mom. Dad. You know what this world is like. We're nobody. Any rich man, any official, any thug with connections can crush us whenever they feel like it. Doesn't matter how much money we save. Someone with power can take it all with a wave of their hand. But if I learn martial arts, if I become strong, nobody touches this family. Ever again. Direct hit. I could see it land on both of them. This wasn't about hunting. This was about never being helpless again. Never having loan sharks kicked down the gate. Never selling land at a loss. Never watching your daughter starve while you eat watered-down porridge. Dad closed his eyes and let out a long, heavy sigh. Years ago, when this family still had some money, we sent you to school hoping you'd make something of yourself. So you wouldn't spend your whole life scraping dirt off a few acres, bowing to heaven and begging officials for mercy. If martial arts is the same path to a better life, and we have the means, then you should go. You should fight for it. Mom pressed her hand over her heart, like she was physically holding in the pain of spending 100 taels. Fine. If this is what you've decided, your mother supports you. I exhaled so hard I nearly deflated. The head of the martial hall personally told me I have excellent potential. I won't let you down. Mom rolled her eyes. Yes, yes, yes. Go conquer the world, whatever you want. I snatched the 100-tael note back into my jacket. I'll register tomorrow. Dad raised a hand. Slow down. You don't just show up with money. You need a proper gift for the teacher. We'll prepare everything correctly. This family does things with class. Fair enough. Then tomorrow I'll hit the mountain one more time. Maybe find something special to bring as a gift. Decision made. Plan locked in. Mom and Qingtang rushed to the kitchen to make dinner. Simple family meal, no guests to impress, but still meat and vegetables on the table. We'd come a long way from counting rice grains in watered-down porridge. After dinner, I pulled out the silver bracelet and stuffed it into Mom's hands. She lit up like a lantern. What are you doing wasting money on your old mother? I don't need fancy things at my age. She said this while rotating the bracelet under the lamplight, examining every detail of the vine pattern, stroking the silver with her thumbs, holding it up at different angles. She would not put it down. If it hadn't been dark outside, she absolutely would have sprinted to every neighbor's house to show it off. When I make real money, I said, I'm upgrading you to solid gold. I slipped into the kitchen before she could get emotional again. Qingtang was wiping down the stove. A strand of hair had fallen loose from behind her ear. She tucked it back absent-mindedly. These past few days of actual meals had filled out her cheeks a little, and the change was devastating. The girl was leveling up in real time. I leaned against the doorframe and appreciated the view for a moment. Then I walked over with the hairpin hidden behind my back. Qingtang. She turned. Her expression was softer than I'd ever seen it. What is it? I checked her stats. Affection, 40. From -30 to +40. In under a week. The comeback story of the century. Hold out your hand. She opened her palm, confused. I placed the phoenix head silver hairpin into it. Her hand shook. She immediately tried to push it back. No, no, no. This is too expensive. I can't. I caught her hand, closed her fingers around the pin, and held them shut. You're my future wife. Buying you things is my job. She heard the word, wife, out loud. From my mouth. For the first time ever. And her entire operating system crashed. She stood there with her autumn water eyes wide open, staring at me, completely frozen. Loading screen. Blue screen of death. System reboot required. I reached over and gently rubbed the top of her head. That broke the spell. Her face erupted in the most spectacular blush I'd ever witnessed. Cheekbones, ears, neck, everything turned the color of sunset, and she bolted out of the kitchen clutching the hairpin like a relay baton, not looking back. I glanced at her retreating figure and checked the panel one more time. Affection, 50. 50. From -30 to 50. In 6 days. At this rate, I'd max out her affection before I even finished my first month of martial arts training. And then, partner bonuses, stat boosts, talent upgrades. Being a good man wasn't just morally correct. It was also incredibly efficient. Woke up feeling like a god. One night of sleep and every ounce of fatigue from fighting a demon wolf king, running 10 miles through mountains, and hauling 16 wolf carcasses had just vanished. Constitution 14 was basically a cheat code for recovery. My body was a machine that ran on sleep and meat buns. Stepped out of my room to find the women mobilizing for a shopping expedition. Mom was buttoning up Xiaopin's jacket. Qingtang was holding a basket, ready to march. Where's everyone going? Town. Need salt, tea, supplies for your enrollment gift, and about 50 other things this house is missing. Mom didn't even look up. I glanced at Qingtang. She caught my eyes and immediately stared at the floor. Her ears were still slightly pink. The hairpin incident was clearly still processing in her system. Xiaopin put both hands on her hips and stuck her chin out at me like a tiny general. You didn't take us yesterday, so we're not taking you today. I couldn't help it. I reached over and thoroughly destroyed her freshly tied pigtails with one aggressive head rub. Her face went from smug to furious. She clamped both hands over her ruined hair. Bad brother. I'm not bringing you candied fruit anymore. Mom slapped my hand away. Stop bullying your sister. The ox cart's almost at the village gate. Breakfast's in the pot. Help yourself. I watched the 3 of them leave and turned to find Dad sitting under the eaves, carefully carving a piece of reddish-brown wood. Dad, is that red elm? He didn't look up. His hands never stopped. Got it from Carpenter's son. Perfect for your new bow. Red elm for the limbs, red mulberry for the inner core. When it's done, it'll match or beat anything he who owns. This man. Bad leg, aging body, and he was quietly building me a weapon worthy of a warrior. I didn't interrupt him further. Kitchen. Lifted the pot lid. Leftover pork buns from yesterday, still warm. Life had changed so dramatically that we were now the only family in the village eating 3 meals a day with meat at every single one. A week ago, we were counting individual rice grains. 3 buns demolished. Half a pot of hot water. Gear up. Head to Wild Wolf Ridge. The forest was alive with activity. The recent rain had triggered a mushroom explosion, and every woman and child in the village was out with baskets collecting fungi. Men were chopping firewood for winter stockpiles. And when they saw me, smiles, waves. Morning, second brother. Good hunting, Hughie. The same people who'd called me a cursed wastrel and crossed the street to avoid me were now greeting me like a hometown hero. Amazing what killing 16 wolves and a demon king does for your social reputation. I wasn't planning on going deep today, just a casual patrol of the outer forest, maybe set some snares to grind my trap skill. Quick stat check. Strength, 15. Constitution, 14. Agility, 11. Free points, 3. Talents, Alertness, green. Treasure sense, green. Brute strength, white. Scent enhancement, white. Wolf gaze, white. Archery. Intermediate, 37/100. Tracking, beginner, 6 out of 10. Hunting traps, beginner, 5 out of 10. Not bad for 6 days of work. If I could push the trap skill to the next tier during this downtime before enrolling at the Marshall Hall, that'd be a nice efficiency boost. Spent half the day wandering, setting snares, and picking off small game. 2 turtle doves, a pheasant, and, jackpot, a cockless pheasant. These things are rare and gorgeous. The male I shot had a long crest feather and plumage that shimmered like layered rainbow scales. Way too pretty for the dinner table, this was going straight into the enrollment gift basket. I was heading home, feeling pretty good about life, when I spotted 2 guys standing under the big tree at the village entrance, scanning the road like they were looking for someone. One was short and pudgy, face decent enough. The other was short and skeletal, with a weasel face, pointy chin, and tiny rat eyes that never stopped darting. The moment I recognized them, my mood dropped through the floor. Lu Wang and Ho San. 2 of the original me's, best friends, from the neighboring village. And by best friends, I mean parasites who used me as a personal ATM, dragged me to gambling dens for referral bonuses from Boss Ma, and vanished the second the money dried up. They spotted me and came jogging over with big fake smiles. One number 2. Finally found you. Heard you struck it rich. When are you treating your brothers to dinner? Huh. Brothers. Brothers. These 2 cockroaches had the audacity to call themselves my brothers. Ratface Hosan's beady eyes locked onto my basket, and his hand shot out to peek inside. I caught his wrist mid-reach and shoved him backward. Get lost. I started walking past them. Lu Wang jumped in front of me, face twisted with fake outrage. What kind of friend acts like this? You just forget everyone who had your back? Hosan squeaked from behind. Yeah, who stood up for you back then? Who bought you drinks and meals? Now you're rich and you turn into an ungrateful dog. I smiled. Not a warm smile. My foot caught Lu Wang in the chest and put him flat on his back in the dirt. Then my palm connected with Hosan's face hard enough to spin his whole head sideways. Stood up for me? You mean squeezed money out of me at every opportunity? Bought me drinks? Name one time either of you paid for anything. Every single tab was on MY family's stolen money, and you both know it. My voice went cold enough to freeze the air. I looked down at them like they were bugs. And let's talk about the real arrangement. You dragged me to Boss Ma's gambling house, and every time I lost, he kicked money back to you. That's why you 2 magically had cash for the pleasure houses every time I went broke. You think the old me didn't notice? Or you think the new me is stupid enough to let it slide? 2 slaps. 2 kicks. 2 grown men on the ground. One clutching his stomach, one clutching his face. Hosan tried the oldest trick in the book, screeching at the top of his lungs. Help. He's hitting us. HO number 2 IS. 2 more slaps. He went face first into the mud. That's a bonus. Come near me again, and I'll chop you up and feed you to the wolves on Wild Wolf Ridge. There aren't any wolves left up there, but I'll find some specifically for you. They looked up at my eyes and saw something that made every complaint, every threat, every scream die in their throats. Whatever they saw in my face convinced them that I was not making a joke, not exaggerating, and not someone they wanted to test. Silence. Complete, terrified silence. I stepped between their bodies and walked home without looking back. At the house, Mom and Xiaopin were already back from shopping. Qingtang wasn't home. Mom said she'd gone to Willow Tree Village to trade some doves for goat milk since the local sheep wasn't producing enough. I checked on the wolf pup in my room. The little guy was curled up in a nest of rags and old cotton, fast asleep. Milk stain on his tiny mouth, belly round as a ping-pong ball, living his best life. Helped Dad flip and dry the jerky strips in the yard. Sun dropping lower. Getting late. Qingtang still wasn't back. I walked to the kitchen door. Mom, how long has she been gone? Willow Tree Village is only a few miles away. Mom stopped, looked at the sky, and slapped her forehead. You're right. She should have been home ages ago. Every alarm in my body went off at once. Willow Tree Village, where Lu Wang and Hosen lived. The same 2 rats I'd just beaten and humiliated less than 3 hours ago. My face went cold. Something's wrong. I ran east so fast the world blurred. Full sprint, maximum stats, legs pumping like pistons. The distance between our village and Willow Tree Village, normally a casual walk, evaporated in minutes. But I didn't slow down. Couldn't. Then I caught it. My scent enhancement talent pulled a faint trace of goat milk from the air like a bloodhound catching a trail. I dropped my eyes to the road. Splashed liquid. Fresh. I crouched and sniffed. Goat milk. Definitely. Female footprints. Small. Freshly pressed into the dirt. My blood went cold and hot at the same time. I scanned the surroundings. North, a low dirt slope. On the slope, her footprints. And 2 sets of men's boots. Milk droplets splattered along the path. They had her. Over the slope. Into a scraggly patch of woods. Smashed clay pot on the ground. Milk soaked into the dirt. I was running on pure adrenaline and murder instinct now. A few hundred meters deeper, a man's scream ripped through the trees. I locked onto the sound and launched toward it. We just wanted to talk. You crazy woman, trying to kill us? Hosan's ratty voice. Unmistakable. Mixed with another man groaning in pain. Then Qingtang's voice, steady but shaking underneath. You forced me into this. Back OFF. I crashed through the bushes and saw everything. Qingtang was backed against a tree, face white as paper, chest heaving, holding her sewing scissors in front of her like a knife. Blood on the tips. She'd stabbed one of them. Lu Wang was clutching his arm, blood seeping between his fingers. Hosan stood beside him, half angry, half scared, both of them breathing hard. The picture assembled itself instantly. They'd ambushed her on the road. No witnesses nearby. Chased her into this isolated patch of forest. She'd fought back with the only weapon she had, her sewing scissors. This girl, this incredible, terrifying girl, outnumbered, cornered, and she'd drawn blood. Lu Wang's fat face twisted into something ugly. He grabbed Hosan's arm. Forget it. Rush her together. She's just one woman. Hosan hesitated, remembering what I'd done to them 3 hours ago. You really want to do this? She stabbed me. I'm not walking away from that. Hosan swallowed hard. His eyes crawled over Qingtang's body. Something dark flickered behind those rat eyes. He was about to step forward when a shadow fell across his back. My foot hit him between the shoulder blades like a battering ram. He flew forward and ate dirt so hard, he probably swallowed half the forest floor. Lu Wang hadn't even turned his head before my boot caught him in the stomach. He folded like a paper lantern and rolled across the mud, vomiting. I pulled the machete from my belt. My face felt like carved stone. Qingtang saw me. Her arm dropped. The scissors dangled from limp fingers. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. I stepped on Hosan's back and pressed the blade against his neck. What did I tell you 3 hours ago? I said if you came near me again, I'd kill you. Did you think I was joking? Did you think you had time? Hosan was thrashing under my boot like a fish on a dock, but with 15 points of strength bearing down on his spine, he wasn't going anywhere. The cold steel on his neck froze him solid. Wait. Brother Hua. It's a misunderstanding. All a misunderstanding. Lu Wang tried to stand up. I walked over, grabbed him by the collar, lifted him off the ground with one hand, and punched him in the face. He went down like someone had cut his strings. I put my boot on his shoulder. Misunderstanding? You want to test whether I'll really do it? The blade pressed harder against Hosan's neck. A thin red line appeared. Blood beads formed along the edge. Lu Wang's entire body started shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. His pants darkened with a spreading wet stain. He was crying now, snot and tears mixing with the blood from his nose. PP please. Brother Hua. We were just trying to scare her. We didn't do anything. Yeah. She started running the second she saw us. Then she stabbed us. We didn't even touch her. Hosan wailed from the ground. I knew the truth. These two hadn't started with this plan. They were just petty thugs nursing bruised egos after I'd humiliated them. They'd spotted Qingtang alone on the road and figured they'd harass her to get some revenge. Then Lu Wang got stabbed, and his wounded pride transformed into something much uglier. In this world, with its brutal social codes, even an attempted assault on an unmarried woman destroyed her reputation permanently. If word got out that 2 men had chased her into the woods, even if nothing happened, Qingtang's name would be ruined. With her personality, she'd rather die than live with that shame. These 2 rats had nearly killed her without laying a finger on her. Every fiber of my being wanted to end them right here, right now. 2 bodies in the deep woods. Nobody would ever find them. But I couldn't. Not today. I'd made a public scene with these 2 at the village entrance just hours ago. Half the village saw me beat them up, and several people watched me sprint out of the village right after. If these two disappeared today, I'd be suspect number one. A murder investigation would destroy everything. No martial arts school, no hunting, no future. I needed to deal with them. Just not yet. A different time. A different method. So I played a different game. I released Lu Wang and let my face twist with fake panic. Through gritted teeth, like I was talking to myself. Those idiots. How did Boss Ma find out about the treasure? Then I kicked them both a few more times for good measure, grabbed Qingtang's wrist, and started dragging her away. As we walked, I muttered just loud enough for them to hear, "No, I can't let anyone find out. I need to dig up the rest of them before someone else gets there." The rest. Of them. Plural. Multiple treasures. Still buried. Out there for the taking. I was dangling bait. Behind us, two beaten, bloody, terrified men lay groaning in the dirt. Hosen eventually managed to sit up, holding his almost broken nose. How? How did that sick weakling get so strong? Lu Wang spat blood and dragged himself upright. See? I told you. He won't actually kill us. It's all bluff. He wiped his face. Let's go tell Boss Ma. Let him deal with this animal. But Ho-san grabbed his sleeve. His rat eyes were glittering with something new. Wait. Did you hear what he said just now? Lu Wang blinked. Then his eyes went wide. He really has more treasure. Not just more. He said dig them all up. There's a whole stash somewhere. And he's panicking. The two beaten, humiliated, pants-wetting cowards looked at each other. And instead of fear, I saw exactly what I'd planted in their stupid little brains. Greed. Pure, stupid, beautiful greed. Come and get it, boys. I'll be waiting. The sky was turning dark as I led Qingtang away from those two pieces of garbage. She was still trembling. I stopped, turned around, and gently took her hands. Her fingers were clenched so tight around those scissors that I had to peel them open one by one. Underneath, her palm was covered in deep red nail marks where she'd been gripping hard enough to break skin. Something in my chest twisted painfully. I took the scissors away and softened my voice as much as I could. Qingtang, it's over. You're safe. She looked up at me, and then she just collapsed forward into my chest, buried her face against my shirt, and cried. Not quiet crying. The deep, ugly, gasping kind that comes from holding everything in for too long. I didn't let them. I fought. I'm still. She couldn't finish the sentence through the sobs. I was so scared. I wrapped my arms around her and held on. Patted her back slowly. I saw everything. You were brave. You were so brave. I'm here now. Nobody's going to hurt you. I stroked her hair and made my voice as gentle as I could manage while simultaneously planning two murders in the back of my brain. I'm sorry I was late. This will never happen again. Do you believe me? She nodded against my chest, voice barely a whisper. I believe you. I smiled and took her hand. Let's go home. She let me hold her hand the entire walk back. Like letting go would mean the world wasn't safe anymore. A few steps down the road, I remembered to check her panel. Affection, 80. 80. From 50 to 80 in one rescue. The hero saves the girl trope might be the oldest story in the book, but the conversion rate was insane. 80 meant she wasn't just grateful, she was ready to commit. Full marriage-level attachment. In gamer terms, I'd basically completed her romance questline. My mood, which had been pure volcanic rage for the last 30 minutes, finally lightened up a few shades. We reached the village just as full darkness fell. Qingtang tried to slip her hand out of mine. I held on. She tugged again. I did not let go. Second son, she whispered urgently. Maximum innocence. Please. What happened today? Can you not tell anyone? Not a word. I promise. Second son. Qingtang, what are you two doing standing there? Mom's voice detonated from 20 feet away like a cannon. Qingtang flinched so hard, she nearly left her skin behind and ripped her hand free at the speed of light. I coughed casually and waved. Hey, Mom. We're back. Mom speed walked over and inspected us both head to toe. Finding no visible damage, she relaxed. What took so long? Qingtang, where were you? Qingtang opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She stared at the ground. Wild dogs, I said smoothly. 2 stray dogs blocked the road. Scared her pretty bad. The milk jug broke. Ugh, stray dogs. What a nuisance. Mom bought it completely. Well, you're both fine. That's what matters. There's leftover goat milk at home. We'll get more tomorrow. Inside, Dad noticed Qingtang's puffy red eyes and asked what happened. I recycled the dog story. He accepted it. Dinner was red braised pork and greens. I ate like a man who'd just sprinted several miles and almost committed a double homicide. At some point, I picked up a piece of meat with my chopsticks and dropped it into Qingtang's bowl. Here, eat. She glanced up at me, the fastest peak in human history, then lowered her eyes and ate it in tiny, obedient bites. Mom's eyes went luminous. She elbowed Dad under the table so hard, he almost choked. The two of them started having an entire silent conversation, using only eyebrow movements and meaningful stares. Dad cleared his throat. The enrollment gifts are mostly ready. You going to the Marshall Hall tomorrow? Yep. I set down my chopsticks and went serious. Dad, watch the house while I'm gone. Lu Wang and Hosen showed up today, trying to shake me down. Sounds like Boss Ma found out I sold something valuable at the Marshall Hall and sent those two to sniff around. I beat them up, but they might come back to cause trouble. Dad's face darkened instantly. We'll be careful. Wife, you and Qingtang keep Xiaopin close. Don't let her wander. I went back to eating, but my mind was elsewhere. I knew exactly what Lu Wang and Hosen were. Cowards who acted tough the moment your back was turned. Beaten dogs who'd lick their wounds and come back to bite when you least expected it. They needed to disappear. Permanently. The bait was already planted. Those two greedy idiots had heard me, accidentally, blurt out that there were more treasures buried somewhere. With their rat brains and bottomless greed, they'd absolutely take the hook. I just needed to wait for the right moment. Mom's voice yanked me back to reality. Now that we're doing better, we really should think about the children's marriage. Qingtang dear, I know my son didn't deserve you before, but he's changed now. He's a real man. So, what do you think? Qingtang's head dropped so low her forehead nearly touched the table. After the longest pause in human history, she whispered, whatever father and mother decide. In ancient China, that's a yes. That's a full volume, standing ovation, fireworks display yes. Mom turned to me. And you? I was still running murder logistics in my head and completely missed the question. Mom kicked me under the table hard enough to bruise. OW what? Mom glared daggers. I am trying to get you married. Are you telling your mother you don't want to? I never said that. Mom's face exploded into sunshine. Perfect. It's decided. We build the new house first, then find an astrologist to pick a lucky wedding date. She launched into a monologue about construction materials, guest lists, and fabric colors that lasted approximately 45 minutes. After dinner, I went to bed early. Fell asleep fast. Then a sound woke me up. The door opening and closing. Soft footsteps. Who's there? Wolf gaze activated. Even in total darkness, I could see perfectly. Qingtang, wearing nothing but a thin sleeping gown. She'd just slid the door bolt shut behind her. She walked to the edge of my bed. My brain was doing emergency calculations trying to figure out what was happening. Qingtang, what are you doing here? Her voice cracked with barely contained emotion. I need you to know. They didn't. I'm clean. I know you might have doubts after today, so I'm giving myself to you. To prove it. Oh no. Oh no. She thought I might reject her because of what almost happened in the forest. She thought today's near disaster had tainted her, and the only way to prove her purity was to offer herself to me right now, tonight, before I could change my mind about the marriage. This world, this stupid, cruel, backwards world and its stupid rules about women's honor. She'd been the victim, and she was the one feeling ashamed. She'd fought off two attackers with sewing scissors, and she was worried I wouldn't want her anymore. Before I could open my mouth to explain that I had absolutely zero doubts, and she had nothing to prove, she closed her eyes, spread her arms, and threw herself directly onto me. Take me, please.